Hello guys, it's Wicked here. I want to introduce everyone to the Summoning Insight. For example, I'm a big fan of Irelia. I like to play this. I think it's a good show, but the problem is like 50% bashing, 50% burning bridges. Like I don't really want to be part of something like that because I think like if it doesn't really cater to the side of the league that I want to be a part of. It's like kind of toxic, kind of like Noob Dog Mithy. I really like Aurelia though. He does just that like weird smile, like does he really understand what I just said to him, or is he just smiling just to make me feel good? Like, anyway, welcome to Summoning Insight. I'm not actually Wicked. I'm actually Thorin. I work for On Gamers. I'm a big fan of Wicked though, but sometimes I feel like his comments towards me are like 50% bashing, 50% stuff about Aurelia. So I don't know where to go with him. I don't want to be part of that. The people on the show today. There's my regular co-host. I call him a co-host because he's gotten like a big ego because he thinks he's like the top banana at OGN. Like Chobra's his co-host sometimes. Doa works with him sometimes. He's the main star, But on this show, we all know who the real star is. He's kind of like the guy I want to give a bit of shine to. I want to get him known in the Western community because he's been talking about these little Asian guys who play the game. And listen, he does a great job. He does a bang-up little job. He tries his heart out. He's sort of the little caster who could. His name's Monte Cristo. Hello.
Hi, we still have no viewers at OGN, so yeah, I understand.
No. Listen, one day, maybe when Kobe moves on to being like coach of TSM or something, then maybe you can get that coveted LCS and Esports. I'm fingers crossed.
You know what's in my heart.
I know.
You know what's in my heart, Thorin.
So, our guest this week, usually I like diss people, so I'll just continue that tradition. Why not? Make everything Wicked said correct. So, some people like to think of him as the second best AD carry that Nif has played with in his career. I prefer to think of him as the second best AD carry that N-Rated has played with in his career. It's CandyPanda. Hello. Guten Tag.
Who's the best AD carry then? Do you mean Reckless or what? Should I burn the first bridge
Yeah,
already?
listen, I don't know. I don't want to. I don't touch that. I just go with whatever the public tell me. So last week, people complained. What a fucking shocker that is. I mean, I had to stop for a second, think, well, if people are complaining, I better take stock of what's going on here, because obviously something incredibly bad's happened. No, we didn't talk much about EU last week, because we were too busy trying to get Zion Spartan to drop dime on the fact that Nintendo X is actually Nintendo Feed X. And I think we almost got there. We almost broke him on in questioning, but like he pled the fifth, and then he called his lawyer in or something, and then like we had to cut the show short. That's why. But this week, let's talk about Europe, Monty's favorite region. So,
Number one region.
Yeah, the place to start with Europe, actually, even though we've got Candy here, I want to start with Alliance since they're top of the league. Coming into this split, if you remember how the last split ended, Alliance had that 10 out of 12 games winning streak in the end of the regular season. And everyone was like, wow, they're the best team. They've turned it around. They're going to... Me and Monty predicted they'd win the whole playoffs. And then they actually finished fourth overall. Coming into this split now, was there reason behind the scenes, Candy, to know that Alliance would actually be like really good again? That the playoffs weren't like a sign that like, oh, maybe they weren't as good as we thought?
Yeah, of course. I think like last season or last playoffs, like they didn't really play as good as they could. So I don't know. I think they had the same problem that we did, where you didn't really want to go all in training because you would get too burned out because there was no break between the spring split playoffs and the next split if you go to All Stars. So I don't think they trained as hard as they could for the playoffs because of that reason. So I don't know. I always found them to be a top team because they were really good at the end of the spring split.
What did you think, Monty? Did you have a sense that the playoffs was like some sort of fluke or something? I know we often talked about the fact that like maybe the patch for the change of the playoffs, so they were one of the teams that might have suffered.
Yeah, I think actually that what Alliance really needed was some downtime in order to actually go back and fix at a very basic level some of their shot calling and strategy problems. And it's really hard to do that in the middle of a season because if you take a couple weeks to do that, you basically have to slow down your development in terms of keeping up with the meta. And it's a lot to do while you're just trying to prepare for your opponents and scrim as much as possible because mostly if you're trying to fix these issues, it involves a lot of VOD watching and team discussion. And that comes at a price of like practicing your mechanics and stuff like that. So I think at the end of the season, and of course, Fnatic always picks it up for the playoffs and stuff like that. So I think that the offseason was really necessary for them because before the first season, they were very new and it was a new team. They were trying to develop that synergy. Well, then they get to know each other over the course of the season. Then it's some downtime, and now we see, I think, the strong alliance coming in. So it just looks to me like they've used the offseason very effectively.
I also think, though, like, the other teams dropped off. I mean, Rocket dropped off, Gambit dropped off, Fnatic dropped off.
That's true.
So Alliance looks stronger in comparison as well.
And SK got kind of a slower start.
Yeah, but that was expected. Like, we said to ourselves that we just want to take the first weeks easy because last split we got a bit burnt out because we, like, from week one, we
you went
just
too
played
hard on
so
the
much.
regular split.
Yeah, exactly. So we said we take the first weeks easy and then it's better to go train a lot during the end of the split because that's where the playoffs are.
Okay, listen, I like that topic, so let's go into it then, because that's actually something I've always said. I've actually always said this is a criticism of LCS. So the criticism in EU every season, you'll remember, is like, oh, it's so inconsistent. How are you supposed to see who's the best? It's just bullshit. Like, EU must be terrible. It's actually the fact that no one in history of esports has ever figured out how to peak for 3 straight months. And that's basically what LCS is. It's like 9 or 10 weeks, or 10 or 11, depending on which like split it is. Then you have the playoffs as well. So you have to be on form for essentially 12 weeks in a row, which I don't think any team could ever do, right? Like,
I mean, Cloud9 has done it pretty effectively.
Against the weakest split in the history of the competition, you know? The last 2 splits, you could say, are the weakest ever at the bottom for NA, you know? Like, just dumpstering bad teams over and over, beating these over and over. Listen, I'll give them credit. They were amazing and they were much better, but I think that's the reason why in Europe you never get that consistency. It's always going to be like that. As long as there's any sort of parity between the teams, you're not going to get a team dominate the other for like 6 straight weeks. I don't think it's ever happened in Europe except the very first split when a lot of those, we didn't have as many good bottom teams, you know. So the question I'm getting to it.
SKTK, though, they dominated for a couple months in Champions Winter this year.
Okay, you say that, but they dominated for, I think it was 15 games. They
Yep.
went 15-0. Okay, well, in LCS, the minimum you can play to win is 33 games.
That's
Do
true.
you think SKT would have gone 33-0? I don't.
No,
They would have lost a couple of games, you know. And not only that, they might have lost one. Okay, so let's say they'd been 28-0. They might then lose one to some weird team, you know, like a bad team, you know. That's kind of the point I'm making it anyway. The point I'm going to get to here is it'll sound like a convenient excuse now, Candy. If your team came second in the playoffs, you lost to Fnatic really badly in the final, and now you're like, okay, well, you know, a slow start. We're just getting into things, easing into things. We didn't want to go too crazy, you know. But it is. What do you think on this topic? Is it hard to stay focused for the 12 weeks? Is Monty right? Like Cloud9 did it, you could do it. What do you think?
Yeah, Cloud9 did it. It's actually pretty impressive, but like for us, it wasn't possible. Like we noticed that our motivation went down so hard in like week 10 or 11, so we had to take a step back. But it's impressive that Cloud9 can do it. I don't know. They also played the spring split, then they went to All Stars even, and then they even played the summer split. Even with High having like illness, and then they still play like so much. It's pretty impressive.
Was this a team-wide decision? Like you actually talked in an off split? Like, yeah, we're going to start off a bit slower, like work our way up. Does it mean you didn't practice until the season started? The split, rather?
Yeah, we all took like as much break as we could. We started 4 days before the split started. Then we started practicing. Of course, we played solo queue before, because solo queue is like, you can do it in your free time. It's not so stressing, but yeah. Team practice 4 days before.
Before we get too much into your teams, there's so much we can go into, and we've wanted to talk to someone from SK. Monty mentioned before how Fnatic always pick it up. Fnatic had to play the All-Star tournament during the off-season of the split. And Fnatic's the team who famously nearly always say, like, oh, we weren't practicing much during the off-season, we had a whole break and all that. You think Fnatic didn't play at all scrims during the off-season?
Yeah, I think so as well. I don't think they scrim much for All Stars as well.
What do you think of the topic of... Okay, so because they did so badly at All Stars, people who only watch LCS and only watch World Championship are going to think, oh, Europe's weak again, like they did after last All Stars, you know. What did you think of Fnatic? Like, how did they represent Europe? Were they actually the best team going into it, do you think? Were they the right pick if you could have picked a team?
If I could have picked, I would have chosen Alliance or us, I think.
Why?
I think, like... I don't know. It felt like our playstyle, like, we could adapt better to the international scene, I think. It might sound weird, or like, It says like no proof behind it, but it felt like it. I felt like Fnatic couldn't really play enough or adapt enough to really play there well enough.
Was their level actually good at the tournament? Did they look like the Fnatic you played in LCS?
Yeah, of course. But like as I said before, like for the playoffs, no EU LCS team really went all in and went to their full potential. So in general, I think EU is just weak in that off-season period.
Gesundheit.
Sorry.
Okay, Monty, what do you think on this topic then? These EU teams don't play in the off-season. They start out slow. They're just working their way in, feeling their way into the league. Fnatic maybe didn't even practice going to All-Star. Maybe they did a little bit. What do you think on this topic? It sounds like something you'd have an opinion on.
I mean, I think it's incredibly silly for them not to practice during the off season. That's just, especially if you're going to go to All Stars and try and put up a good result for your fans at an international tournament. I mean, I've ranted at length about Fnatic's decision making on that during this show, but yeah, definitely, you should be practicing. In fact, I wish that CLG had been able to practice more during the off season because I think we would have had a better first week.
I'm sure they practiced, but I'm just saying I don't think they went like all in on that.
Well, as far as we're concerned on CLG, we wanted to go as all in as possible. Unfortunately, we had a lot of people at All Stars, but yeah, it was really important to us.
Yeah.
On this topic, the reason why it's an interesting way to preface the thing in terms of whether you thought they'd practiced or all that stuff is that it's kind of like, I worry about Fnatic because they've now got this rep that they themselves even seem to believe, which is like that. Okay, oh yeah, we always start slow, or we have like a period in where maybe we drop off a bit, but don't worry guys, we always get it together. In the playoffs, we always do well. And the problem with that logic is that while that holds, you can believe it's true, but it's one of those things like, the one time it doesn't work is when you're fucked. So essentially, think of Gambit. They used to say the same thing. Listen, don't worry about the seasons. We always come top 4 at every tournament with Edward. We always figure it out. And then, well, guess what? The one time they didn't, the whole team's fucked. Do you really think Fnatic is Fnatic still like a top 3 team Europe? Definitely. Is it that clear cut right now?
Right now, obviously not. But in 7 weeks or whenever, like a lot of things can change. So I don't know. Right now they aren't, but in 7 weeks, so much can happen. So I don't know.
But what could change in their team?
Well, you can always like talk, and then you say, okay, playoffs are coming. We are gonna play more. We are gonna put more effort into it, and then the results will improve as well. So it just depends on the mindset as a team, how much they want to play and what goal they have.
What do you think, Monty? Does Fnatic finish top 3 at the end of the split? Definitely.
Not definitely. I think they can still pull it together, but it's going to be, I think, really difficult for them because we've talked about this before with Fnatic, but other teams have put in place an infrastructure that is more disciplined. And the only thing that I hear when Fnatic just assumes that they're going to be at the top every season or that they can turn it on when it matters is that they lack discipline. And that's not the way League of Legends is going. League of Legends is, no professional sports team says, oh yeah, we're just going to slack off right now and we'll just pick it up by the time the playoffs rolls around. That's never a good idea. So you have to be able to maintain that discipline in order to win. And when other teams have somebody kicking the team's ass, then that means that you're just not going to be able to be that consistent anymore. The infrastructure is developing in the West at a rate that this is not going to be functional eventually.
So let it never be said that Asia's had too much influence on Monty, because he's just said that Fnatic rack discipline. But anyway, just a lame joke there. Right, so that's actually a real topic to talk about, which is, if you look at this season, okay, and everyone's going to say the same thing, Fnatic themselves probably think, don't worry, we'll turn it around at some point. But look at what's changed since last season. SK already had in place this like sports psychologist. I want to get to this stuff later, but a sports psychologist, potentially some sort of positional coach who maybe coaches the mid lane or something, or gives positional matchup information. You can tell us about that shit later, Candy.
Yeah,
and in theory, Alliance now have these analysts who they've had, and they tried some guy with like a haircut that goes like anime style over one eye, and then like he went to TSM or something. I don't know what happened there. So that people are trying other things who were the main rivals for Fnatic. Okay. Meanwhile, Fnatic, as far as I know, are trying nothing. Like, all I ever heard of them was that apparently they let Aranea as a friend help them with level 1s or something during the playoffs or something like that. But I never heard anything like, was he going to become the coach? Doesn't sound like it based on him saying he has some some other news coming soon. I don't know if they have a coach. I haven't heard anything about them having an analyst. So they're like the one top team I can think of in the West now who doesn't have this infrastructure in place. Like, is this accurate according to what you know, Candy?
All I know is that I never saw like a seventh person, like except the manager, of course. Like, there's no guy with them at LCS. They might have him like at home. I don't actually know. I don't actually know if they have one online or whatever.
Was that actually any kind of like? Was that factor overplayed? The fact that Fnatic had Aranea help them out in the playoffs, because it did look like they went from being good to like the peak Fnatic in the playoffs again. You know, like they just suddenly jumped up at the end.
No, I think they just wanted the win pretty hard. I don't think it was Aranea coaching them to that full potential or whatever. It was just, I think they just decided as a team that they really want to win this.
Fair enough. What do you think about the fact that... How big of a factor do you think it actually makes Monty to not have an analyst in this day and age?
Massive. It's going to be really hard to win without one. Just because the other team will always have more information. The other team... And, you know, we throw around these terms like analyst and coach as well, but like for analysts, usually that's somebody who's compiling statistics and information to be used by the team itself. Whereas coach, I think, implies a more leadership or emotionally oriented role that usually uses information provided by analysts or can do some of the analyst work themselves in order to kind of get the strategies through. Like the analyst is the person, I think, who comes up with the stats, and the coach is the person who implements them. And one person can do both, but I just want to clarify those terms a little bit. I do think Fnatic needs both. And I do think it helps to have the additional information that an analyst brings and just the research power as well as the discipline, because everybody's just a human being and you're naturally lazy and you need somebody there who's takes responsibility and kicks ass.
So the problem with this is now, since we've highlighted, the reason I brought those two examples of Alliance and Fnatic is you can see Alliance is doing really well, Fnatic's not doing that well, and this is like one of the differences potentially between the two teams who should be like Europe's top two in terms of like talent or something like that. Okay, so if we talk about SK now, a lot of story was made around this. I've noticed in esports, particularly League of Legends, they go really hard when they think they have a good narrative story. Like, for example, okay, a famous story is N-Rated came to SK turns thing around, therefore N-Rated must be the genius, right? He's the one who made everything work. And so let's address some of these topics, and Candy can give us his thoughts on it. Let's go with that one first. So when I saw your SK lineup, okay, and Nif wasn't in the lineup, I would have probably bet money that you'd finish bottom 3 last split. Like, I thought it'd be you, Super Hot Crew, and then I wouldn't have said Millennium. I'd have probably said, like, Copenhagen Wolves or something, you know? But I would have said SK will finish bottom 3, because I look at the talent in the lineup, and I'm like, where are the all-star players, okay? There's no person who's the best at his position here in this team. Yet you actually finished top of the whole regular split. So the first thing people are going to say is, well, look who they added. They added N-Rated, and he's got a history of good at analysis, good at breaking down the game, maybe some some aspects of shot calling, if not a whole shot caller. What did he actually bring in that sense? Was he a significant factor?
He was more vocal than Nif, but I don't think he was the main shot caller the whole split. Like, he was certainly like one piece of the puzzle to us winning, but it's not like he magically made us all, or made us like the best team in the split. He just was one piece of the puzzle.
Oh, yeah, but when you say that, one piece of the puzzle, when people are dividing up a pie, it's just another piece of the pie. Well, some fat fucks get a huge piece of the pie, and some anorexic bitch gets a tiny little slice. So how big a slice of the pie was he, Candy? Was he just one piece? Was he a massive piece, and then you were like a little... Was he the middle of Voltron, the torso and the head, and then you were like an arm? What's going on here?
No, I think we were all like equally important to winning.
Bullshit!
Oh, God.
Bullshit! No. Oh, sorry, I had a cough there.
No, I'm actually serious. I don't think anyone is...
Yeah?
I don't think anyone really led this team to winning. I mean, sure, in the beginning, in like the first 3 weeks, the others were unexperienced or whatever, so I had more of the carry role, but still, like, they did their job, and in the end of the split, like, we were all part of winning.
Candy, just think for a second. You can have like 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Think of an all-time great League of Legends team. You're thinking of a team in your mind like championships, amazing, like changed the meta, on top of the scene for a few months. Have you got one in your mind? Just pick one out.
In the past?
Any team ever of all time.
Oh yeah, like M5.
M5, great example. M5, all-time great team. Do you think everyone in that team equally contributed? Do you think there was like a hard carry? Do you think there was a guy who led in a certain area? Do you think there was a supportive player? Do you think there was a guy who maybe his job was doing this one thing over here, which was important, but maybe if this guy over here didn't do his job, then you can't win the game? What do you think?
Yeah, sure. I think, like, it's easy to say, like, Alex Ich or whatever, he was like the big part.
It's like a hard carry, right?
Yeah, but I don't think that's true. I don't think he's more important.
So you don't think Alex Ich is more important to M5, classic M5, than Darian?
No, I don't actually think so.
Okay.
I think
why?
I think they as a team had a pretty they had a play style, and Darren was part of it.
Yeah,
if he would have more of like a Zion Spartan role or whatever, the team wouldn't have worked out that way, because it would be a completely different play style. So if one guy wants to be the hard carry, then another lane has to step back, and that's his job in that sense. So
if you have a Lamborghini, it has to have that, like, I don't know about cars, so I'm going to give you a stupid example. It has to have that V8 engine. That's about how much I know. It has to have some sort of sick-ass engine, right? Has to have really good, like, suspension, steering. Has to have leather seats, because you've got to be comfortable while you're driving. It's got to have tyres. But here's the thing, right? If we were to lose a tyre, we could put another tyre on, probably still have a pretty good ride. If we lost that engine and we got something out of a Volkswagen, the people's car, and we put that into the Lamborghini, I don't think it would be as fast. I'm just going to take this analogy now and put M5 in here. Alex Ich is that engine. Now, maybe Diamond is like that super gear system that changes you up. And then maybe Genja is this like boot at the back that can carry a lot of farm. And maybe Edward's like the steering. It's really good. But then Darian is those really slick tyres that if you have that one style, it's probably going to work quite well. But if we really had to go to dries, I reckon we could go and we could still get that car rolling. What do you think?
Yeah, you could probably get it rolling, but I don't think you could get it rolling as well.
No, I absolutely agree. You bang on there. You've got to exactly the point I want to get to. Now let's imagine we're making a car out of SK. Now in this car, we're going to need some shot calling, Candy. When we have this shot calling, I don't think it'll be as good if we try to use the tyres to power the car, and then we use the boot to steer the car. I think we'll probably need like one piece for different parts. So I'd probably, off the top of my head, guess maybe the jungler should like maybe call like objectives or something. Maybe N-Rated should call macro objectives in some way. Maybe CandyPanda should decide things on the lane, like come to my lane now. There must be something like this going on, like an order, like at this time I'm the most important caller, and in this other situation you get to be, this makes sense, right?
Yeah, of course.
Can you give us a sense of what that's like in SK?
No, it's like pretty much how I described. Like every person has his job, and if he doesn't do it, then the car will fall apart in that sense. So, yeah, I don't know.
Okay, but if we were talking tactically, who do you think would be the players who would give kind of like, this guy really has to do his job amazingly, this guy a little bit less so, this guy has a less important job at this point, but maybe he carries the game skill-wise. Who tactically is the order, or who's doing what in the team, do you think?
I think we all decided as a team. I think everyone's doing call, so he sees some fit. And it's like pretty dynamic.
Okay. When you say you all decided,
let's go Baron, and the other three think, no, that's a shitty idea, then we're not going to do it. So
when you say you all decided, like tactically, like I can get what you're saying there in game. Say you agree on, let's go Baron, okay. But let's talk tactically. Let's say you're coming into a game and you're deciding that this is the comp we're going to try and get, or against this opponent we want to ban this, or in game, like we should probably play this sort of a style. When you're deciding as a team, I don't imagine you all sit around. Like, when you play rock, paper, scissors, you don't want the other person to know what you're going to pick before you pick it, right? So there's a little thing everyone in the world does. You put your hand up and down 3 times like this. Everyone can make GIFs out of this, by the way. It's awesome. You go 1, 2, 3, and then at 3, you both release your hand, and one person does paper, and one person does scissors, and that's how you know that you didn't cheat. You both said it. So I imagine SK sits around and they go, ready, guys? On 5. Against Fnatic, we're going to... pick Vayne, ban Lucian, like, and then we all agreed, yay, we're all equal. Like, who designs things? Who comes up, and then who agrees? I just want to know. I'm a curious guy, Candy. What can I tell you?
Sure, like everyone brings ideas, but like every lane will say it's champion, and then if it doesn't fit, then we
Someone
discuss
says,
about.
"Oh, no, that's interesting. That's exactly the metaphor for." You've just got to the perfect analogy, Candy. I love that you did this. There's a really famous football manager. Maybe he's before your time. He's from the 80s. He was called Brian Clough, and he was from the 70s and 80s in England. And he's considered like one of the all-time great managers because he was really good at man management and strategy. And what he used to say was, if like I can't do his accent, but essentially there's a famous quote where he said, if a player disagrees with me, that's fine. I listen to him, I talk to him, and then we decide why I was right. And that's like basically how his style worked. And that's how a really good leader works. Okay, what he does is he says, "Listen, I want to hear all you guys' ideas. Okay, I see what you're doing there. I like where you're going there. And here's what we're gonna do." And we've all agreed upon it, right? Yeah, it's great being a part of this shot calling stuff. And it really is. And that's all we have to say to the public. So okay, let me ask you this, Candy. I'm just interested right now. I'm curious as fuck right now. I'm like a little newborn baby in his crib. I'm seeing this mobile in front of me. It's my whole world right now. I just want to know, N-Rated was in Fnatic. Played in this team. He was really good. Then he moves over to EG. And he helps them out a little bit with some of their analysis. He helps them figure out some early game stuff. And they pick things up and they do quite well. He goes to Lemon Dogs for Worlds. He helps them with their level 1s. They do some good stuff there. They even get ahead against like SK Telecom, etc. Then he comes to SK. This lineup, like I said, looks quite poor. But suddenly they become the best team in Europe. Now what's interesting is, if I was being crazy here, I'd say he probably has like a pretty big role in the strategy. But I've learned something new today. It turns out this guy who's like 17 from Denmark, he's equally as good. The whole time I never knew. He's like, he knows just as much strategically. He's a shot caller. He knows the picks, the bans. He knows how we should play. He knows the comps. He knows the calls. Equal mark. So if N-Rated's like, "Listen, guys, I think we should do Baron now and come bottom." Jesus is like, "Let's do Baron, but let's not go bottom." And they're like, "Well, gotta be fair. Fair's fair. Come on, man. Give me the real shit. Come on."
It's funny because you trying to lead me to this question.
I'm not at all. Listen. This is your perfect chance to just say, "You're totally wrong, and here's why," and then break me down with races, and everyone's like, "Lol, wrecked, Candy is God, Thorin, shut up, go home."
Yeah,
so here we go, wreck me, come on, come at me, bro, come at me.
No, because like you don't believe me that it's actually pretty democratic, and everyone puts his part in it. Even though it sounds ridiculous, but that's how it is.
Okay.
Everyone is doing his part, and you can make as many analogies as you want, but that's how it is right now.
You're perfectly right there. I can. But Monty, do you have something to weigh in on this topic, my friend?
I mean, I think it's my opinion that having a perfectly democratic shot calling system is inefficient because it takes too long to make decisions. And I can understand when you say everybody's doing their part in terms of feeding information, but at the end of the day, somebody is actually on a team generally who actually makes the decisions, the final call on whether to do something or not. I mean, we had this conversation last week. And so, we talk about this every time. On the case of CLG, it is like definitely Afro and Link that make these decisions. And yes, everybody is important to give information so that Afro and Link can make good decisions. But they are the ones making the calls in the late game, like 100%. Nobody else is.
Of course. But for us, it's basically like whichever lane has pressure in the mid game. If bot lane is rolling, then we are gonna make the calls because we have control of the game at that point. Or if top lane, then it's top lane. Whatever lane has pressure, we go for the calls of that lane. And then in the late game, it's like democratic. The point is that we prepare a lot before the game, so we know what's good at what point. We don't have to make calls. We just know if this and this applies, then we're gonna do Nash. Well, if this and this applies, then we're gonna do rotate there or here.
I guess SK is just more advanced than CLG is stuck in the old like monarchy system, the absolute dictatorship, and SK is the light, the democratic team.
Right. I mean, it works.
No, here's the thing, Candy. I like that. See, by actually asking Candy in that way, he's now explained quite interestingly there. They wait, they see which lane has the pressure, and that's the one that they then make the call. Like he essentially becomes a mini shot caller in that part of the game. Like he's ahead, so he gets to call maybe the jungler to his lane or something like that. This makes sense. But here's the thing: you described when you were saying there. But the reason why we don't need a set shot caller late game is that we prepare so well. So what goes into preparation for SK?
Just in scrims, like in the late game, we always look at the replay or talk about it if something goes wrong, and then we will just do it better. I mean, of course, there's someone in the late game who says, I mean, you can't always plan everything. It's like obvious, but you can plan a lot, and if what you can't plan, then you just have to react to it. But like, we trust each other, so if someone makes a call, then we're gonna go for it. We're not gonna discuss about it, and we don't have anyone who makes the calls late game 100%, and everyone has to listen to him, because we all understand the game equally well, so we all trust each other if someone makes a call in that sense.
Okay, but here's the thing. The team everyone always compares your team to is Cloud9, right? You must have heard this.
Yeah.
So the reason why they compare you to Cloud9 is for the same reason. You don't have like all the all-star players at every position. In fact, most people would say you don't have the best at any of the positions. And at the same time, you have a really good tactical ability. Like, you do the same thing Cloud9 does. You can play from behind a little bit and you can still get back into a game. You can wait until the opponent makes a mistake, you get back into a game, which very few teams in the West can actually do. A lot of them have to be front runners, or they need the other team to throw massively to get back in the game. So that when people think that way, that's why people are going to think there's this regimented shot calling, because in Cloud9, unless I'm mistaken from all the research I did on interviews and AMAs and stuff, they literally have a set system in Cloud9, which I've mentioned on the show before, which is that Hai is the main shot caller. By default, in normal situations, everything he says goes. Yeah. Then they have Meteos does the objectives. So he says, we're going to do the Baron now, or we're going to do come and help me get my buff, or we're going to do the Dragon. He has the precedence in that area. And then before the game, Lemonation's mainly tasked with like getting the information from the analysts and then knowing what the pick ban is. And so again, I'm sure everyone gets its input into the pick ban. I'm sure everyone gets an input into the shot calling and the objective, and to say no, don't do that now. That's a sort of input. But I can see how there's one person making the ultimate call, because like Monty said, in that moment, maybe you can't have a discussion of like, let's go do this now. Are you sure? Well, I'm not really sure if we should. Like, if you do that, you see how you just lost 10 seconds before you even get to the answer there.
Yeah, of course.
In SK, how are you able then to come to these amazing comebacks and to do these like decisive moves? That's the key thing. When someone decides they're taking the Dragon, and you instantly know which tower to go and take and where to put the pressure. How do you make those sorts of calls? Like, is it just a sense? Are you actually practicing those scenarios in scrims well enough?
No, actually, it comes kind of natural. Actually, I don't think there's no one who makes the call. It just, we see what's happening on the map, and then we as a team think alike, and we do the same call, and it just happens that way. And also, if we go for like blue buff and wait or anything, and something happens, like, the point is that when we go for a blue buff and wait, that we know we have the advantage, we know we have the wards in place, and then there's really little that can really surprise us when we go there. So we don't have to make some crazy call there, because we know already we have the advantage. So there's really nothing to discuss. We just know we have the advantage, we go there, and then it just happens that we are stronger. And I don't know. I think it has a lot to do that we talk a lot outside the game, and we're on the same level of understanding the game.
See, what's interesting about that is it actually is the case. I made this case on a past episode that every time I've seen a team get really way better, it's usually because of a roster move. And so what it usually suggests is like that the pieces you have, there's a natural synergy that has to be there. You can work on building other types of chemistry and in-game chemistry. You can specifically say like, I want you to do this, I'll do this. But there's a type of natural chemistry which sort of supersedes that, because it's like you just make sense. So like Edward and Genja or something like that, you know, consciously they might not make sense, but in-game they make sense, okay. In this scenario, a team like Cloud9 literally did pretty much, once they got that exact lineup together, they really were just really good. They were raping they were having a very good time beating up people in the amateur scene. And then they came into LCS and they kept doing that. Cloud9? They pretty much were sort of that good already, okay. Was it the same for SK? Did you really have, did you naturally have that same sense you're talking about? Like, just tactically, we just knew what to do from early on in the lineup?
Yeah, of course, but we were much worse. So, like, we knew what, like, we were on the same level, but just on a worse level. So, over time, we just got better at it.
Okay.
How much has Incarnation helped you with this process?
I think Incarnation is actually there just to give a sixth opinion. If we're arguing something.
We're now splitting this pie up 6 ways. Equal portion to Incarnation.
Yeah, of course. And the equal portion to the sports psychologist as well.
This is what socialism does to
exactly. a man. I don't want to live behind the Iron Curtain, CandyPanda. I believe in democracy and capitalism. This is why I bring up my copy of like Ayn Rand's like what's it called? Atlas Shrugged. Like each man's accomplishments will be held on their own.
Oh God, please no, let's not do Ayn Rand.
Anyway, so my question to Candy on this sense is, like, how did he even get involved in your team?
Jesse. I think Jesse wanted
Jesus, yeah.
someone. Yeah, Jesse. He wanted a sixth person on the team, and since Incarnation was available, we took him.
Oh, I get it. What happened was early on when you weren't doing that well, you said to Enrated, like, guys, we really should get a really good Danish mid laner, and Jesse was like, hey, I know one. Continue anyway. That was obviously a joke.
Yeah. Well, he's banned, so. But even if he wasn't banned, I don't think we would replace him.
Yeah, okay, that's very nice of you. But please continue.
Continue with what? What was the
You were
question?
just explaining how Incarnation got involved in the team. Like, what was the initial plan?
Yeah.
Like, what was he going to initially do in the team?
We had to, like, initially we thought we would do a lot more, but I mean, he has like no degree in coaching or any like real experience, so we really had to start from the ground and build like what we should do with him, because there was really nothing. Like at the start, like he was just useless, but now we got him to a point where he's like really helpful. So yeah, right now he's just giving a sixth opinion, watching the scrims, like telling us what does wrong here or what's here wrong, and also since he plays so much solo queue, he's like first and every time, so he knows when like new picks come into the scene. Like when Lulu mid came, he was the first one who brings it to EU. So Jesse played it like at the week it came to in solo queue.
What about AD carry picks? He's telling you what to play there, and you're like, "Oh, thank you, Incarnation. That's good to have picks. I'll use that."
It's mostly about. It's
Which
mostly
position
mid,
mainly?
but sure, like.
Oh, okay, yeah.
But sure, if there's some solo queue AD carry that everyone's playing, then I will look into it as well.
There's a conspiracy theory out there. Now, you know how I don't like conspiracy theories, Candy, so I want to just clear this right up right now. There's a player who's a 17-year-old Danish mid laner. No one really knows him. He kind of looked a bit shaky in the promotion series. He comes into LCS. You know, it's the kings of Europe play at mid lane in Europe, in EU. Okay, the kings of mid. They're dumpstering him. They're pushing him in. Suddenly, we hear word that the infamous Incarnation, the god of solo queue. Oh, really? Do you? he gets brought on board, and he sort of starts like helping the team, and then people think, I wonder if he gave any tips to Jesus, if he told him how to play this player, if he said maybe use this champion this way. Is he mainly positional coach for mid?
They play one-on-one sometimes, but I think it's unfair to take it away from Jesse, because I think he put a lot of work into it.
No, nobody's doing that. If he improves,
like,
that's great for him.
I think the community assumes that like only because of Incarnation,
that's why I'm bringing it up.
he's good. Yeah, but I think
no, but that's the thing. That wouldn't make sense, because I'll give you an example. Put Incarnation on Copenhagen Wolves, and Kautard will not become really, really good.
Yeah, exactly.
Doesn't matter what he tells him; he can't execute it. You know.
He put a lot of work into it himself. So.
Right. That's what I find very interesting about your comment, actually, is because in sports, when a positional coach helps a player get better, nobody says, "Oh yeah, it was all the coaches." You know, they recognize that both are important. So it's not taking away anything at all from Jesus.
Oh, well, you didn't read the Reddit comments then.
No, I agree. The Reddit comments are
Wait, come on, can we not talk about Reddit comments here? Yes, maybe. 13-year-olds said that, but realistically, it takes a good coach and a good player who wants to learn and can improve, and it doesn't take anything away from the player at all.
Yeah.
Why was your team kind of like
his work? I would say.
Why was your team kind of so cagey about revealing that Incarnation was working with you? Like, it wasn't revealed until like halfway through the split, when someone said something along the lines of like, "Is that guy there on the stream?" And then like people figured it out from that. Like, why not just say, "Listen, we've got this young man, his name's Incarnation," not to be confused with Vizix or Aptodog 2. They're totally two different people. We aren't associated with them. But he's helping us out with coaching, and listen, we've made steps forwards, we made strides. Well, why not just be official about it?
I don't think it was needed. Like, there was no benefit to saying it. It was just, he was working with us, and there's only disadvantage to people knowing that he's working with us. So.
Well, I mean, you could have used it to throw like Fnatic and them on tilt. Like when they were 0-7, like, We used to be really bad. Then we got an analyst, eh? So us. Anyway, that's just a side point, obviously. Let me think. Oh, what's the deal with the sports psychologist then? And don't tell me he doesn't it's like a seventh opinion on the team. There's 5 of us, then he says his opinion, then the dog barks, and then we all agree. Let's go forwards with this plan. Like, okay, what does the sports psychologist do, please?
He mostly brought like the team's way of thinking into this team. Like he brought a lot of good, how do you say it? Like he got a lot of good rituals into the team that we adapted. And he kind of taught us how to be a team, really.
What does he mean by rituals? Like he taught you how to worship Satan before the games? Get extra, get extra talent in exchange for your soul?
Yeah.
What kind of rituals do you mean? Like he taught you like NLP, neural linguistic programming, how to anchor before a game, Candy, and every day you put on your little vein glove and you're like, today I will be the night huntress. What did he give me an example of a ritual.
Well, it's not like some magic. It's just, honestly, it's just like, okay, let's be here 1 hour before the game starts, before LCS starts.
In Europe, that's considered a ritual.
Just bring the team on the same level. So, yeah.
Let's all learn each other's first names, and please don't eat with your mouth full. My God, man,
well,
we're the best in the league now. How do you do it?
You actually would be surprised how many teams are pretty disconnected and aren't thinking the same way.
I would be surprised. Please enlighten me.
No, a lot of the bottom teams are like that.
Wait a second, I'll just pull up the LCS standings here. We've got Gambit. We've got you don't have to name names, but in LCS Europe, we're specifically talking about here. There's teams who, well, we already know some of them don't analysts, but they don't turn up on time, or they don't practice properly, or they just turn up to play the games sometimes.
No, I think especially like new teams are like that.
Oh, so
like
the
in NA,
newer players, okay.
Yeah, like the teams that just came from amateur, that just play online together. They move into a house and they really don't know how to be a team. They don't know what it involves being like a good team. So
if I was to say, just hypothetically, maybe a team like Super Hot Crew, last split would have been in this category. Would that be kind of what you'd think?
Yeah, I think so. I think you can improve so much if you just communicate what you want to do, and you're on the same level, and everyone knows what the goal is, and then you're just gonna be better automatically. It sounds simple, but I think a lot of teams are disconnected in that way.
No, that's the key thing. What's funny is nearly all these scenarios that you're talking about, things you added, none of them are complicated and none of them are like fucking rocket science. Like, it's not like the sports psychologist came in and said, like, Candy, I notice you tend to play Lucian a lot. What happened in your childhood with the dog? And you're like, I can't, listen, I'm not ready for that. I'm just here to play AD carry. And he's like, Candy, if you're going to be a really good bot lane, you need to open up. You got to let someone else in. He's like, listen, I promise Nif, it's me and him forever, man. I can't betray that. And he's like, it's time. He's found someone new. Isn't it time you did too? Like, come on. Obviously, no one did that. Like, but it's all simple stuff, right?
It's actually not so wrong. He did talk with us about any psychological problems we had. Like, for example, in week 2, I had the feeling that I had to carry. Like, if I wouldn't do good, then we would just lose.
But he got you past that, okay, and then you became a supportive AD carry, a bit like Son from OMG, and you were like, okay, I don't need to carry anymore, guys. And to nowadays, I'm all about the Jinx, I'm all about Lucian. I just want to be a support player. Everyone's equal in this team, and Rated carries the bot lane just as much. In fact, you know what? Start farming.
No, but it's true. He helps us out as well.
But I mean, did you actually have some? You were saying here you had issues yourself.
Yeah, of course.
How did you overcome it?
I felt like if I didn't carry then, and how I overcame it was like, it was basically just be more relaxed and don't feel so pressured, and like breathe calmly before the game and stuff like that. You know, that just eases you into playing the game much more.
Can you give us? Is there another example you'd feel comfortable giving from the team of maybe someone? A way they fought or something they got over that, you know, kind of helped you progress in the split?
No, it's basically like when we do it, it's not in a group. There's like individual things that everyone talks to them individually.
So I'm thinking like
I
in
don't
The
actually-
Sopranos when he used to go to that woman and he'd be like, I can tell you what I did, right? And then he like said that he killed someone, and then they were like, that stays here. I don't tell anyone about that.
Well, I think that's important though, as a release for the players, and a lot of times you have that with a coach. But in sports psychology too, when he helps you, does he help you like prepare mentally for the games, like beforehand? Does he have certain exercises that he has you guys go through before you go out onto the LCS stage and play?
Oh no, I think everyone can do. Like we have enough free time so that everyone can do what he wants before the game, so he's happy before playing the game. We're not doing any like yoga before the game or whatever, you know. But mentally, like when we go into a game, sometimes we're like playing with Alliance or whatever, and it's just gonna be harder, and we're like prepared for that. We're not thinking they're better than us, or we're just gonna shit on them or whatever. We're gonna be in a good mindset, so that's what he helps us as well.
What do you think on this topic, Monty? Sports psychologist. I mean, if you had the money for it, CLG would have one, right? Because let's face it, that's a team fucking riddled with neuroses, sort of like psychological problems, things in the background that need to be figured. Some players, I don't want to know what position, might think they have to carry every game.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I think it's incredibly critical. And if you look at the way that sports psychologists are used in traditional sports, it's very important to creating that winning mindset before you go in, addressing nerve issues. Yeah, I think it's really important. It's something that I value very highly personally.
Is there what I wanted to know though is how did SK get this sports psychologist? Because the big thing is, like, I'll give you an example. Okay, the reason why Monty can't coach CLG full time is CLG could not afford Monty because he already has another job that pays him more than that does. So how can SK afford a sports psychologist?
It's not full time with SK too.
Yeah, yes.
He's one of SK is a client.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought maybe what happened was
because he did a survey in LCS 2013.
Yeah.
And he wrote his master's status or whatever. I don't know how it's called, but like to get his
PhD type
college
thing.
degree. Yeah, exactly. He wrote something about how pro players react and how casual players react to certain situations. So he was already involved in like the esports thing, so it was much easier to pick him up.
Was he a fan of League of Legends?
Yeah, of course. He watched LCS. He knew us when he came as well.
Does he ever try and suggest stuff in game?
Yeah, sure.
Do you tell him to shut the fuck up? Say, listen, you're here to keep helping me with my mentality of carrying, but please don't mention stuff in game.
I mean, sure, it's not so useful, but there's some things like I see you play Lucian every game and it's not working out with this.
Oh god, everyone's a critic, eh?
Yeah, maybe you should. I won every game with Lucian this season. I don't know what you're saying.
Yeah. I like it.
But yeah, sure.
See, the reason why this whole topic's interesting to me, okay, is because I've known this fellow called CandyPanda for a while, okay? And you guys are going to think, you're going to see this mild-mannered German exterior. He seems like a very soft man. He seems like a man who, if he hugged you in his big arms, you'd feel warm and you'd just drift off to a happy place. But actually, he can be kind of a cantankerous fellow, a little bit rambunctious. Sometimes he a little bit stubborn, maybe. Maybe he has his own ideas about how the game should be played. Maybe other people have to fit in with his way. Maybe he had a long-suffering sort of boy wonder sidekick who used to just do whatever he said. Is this guy sounding familiar at all? Is that guy still here?
Oh, yeah, sure. I'm not pretending to be like a teddy bear or whatever. I can, like, yeah, sure. I rage as well sometimes.
Because when CandyPanda tells me, listen, like, the psychologist helped me get over my need to carry, because now I realized I do carry. Like, what's going on here? You still, dude, you want to be a carry every game. You want to, like, pick Vayne every game. What's going on?
Yeah, sure, but the difference is that before I felt like if I didn't carry, then the team is just going to lose. But now if I don't carry, then the team can sit back.
So wait, before? When was before?
It was Spring Split, week 3. Like till week 3, like 1, 2, and 3.
So you could pinpoint it. You could pinpoint it so accurately right there. Why? What changed that week?
I think 2 things changed. Like first my mindset, and then also the team just got better. So if I didn't carry from one game, we just could win anyway, because we just got better anyway.
So SK is a bit surprising too, because like obviously with Ocelot's departure after last year, like SK went from kind of being one of the bottom teams to now being this top team in the last couple of splits. So what were the major factors that led to this transition, do you think? And how was SK developing over this time? And after Worlds, what were your goals in terms of changing the roster?
Yeah, like basically we got rid of all the egos, and now we just a
And then
team.
fixed yours.
And I fixed mine. I'm the only ego in the team, so it's much easier for me, you know.
Okay. No, but this is a real point I actually think is real, which is one of the reasons I think is a secret to Cloud9's success, is that first of all, yeah, they got this amazing, almost perfect like shot calling setup that you couldn't even design that, okay? You'd have to have the players where that would naturally work and they would fit together. There's a fluke element to that, okay? But actually, I think part of what made them so good is that they were all rejects from other teams, essentially, or they could just never get into a better team. And so as a result, they didn't have huge egos. Like, Hai didn't think to himself coming into LCS, like, you know what? That Link guy was so overrated. Like, if I'd have been on his team, I'd have dumpstered him. So I'm going to wreck him this game. Like, and you know what? Sneaky wasn't like double lift, talk shit on me. I'm going to kick his head in. They were sort of guys where because they had secondary egos, they had like second type personalities or whatever. They're more suited to think like, well, we're going to win like as a unit and using strategy. That's how we're going to beat people. I'm not going to win by carrying myself. I'm not going to win by winning my lane this time. So it makes sense as to why a team like SK would work in this sense. Because when I've described it before, okay, people will think I'm just like burning you. Like, oh, I looked at the lineup and I thought there's no all-star players here. But dude, let's go down the lineup. Freddy122 had one split where he was a solid top laner for AAA. That's it. No one picked him up after that. He speaks perfect English. Well, he's an English guy, so he speaks with an accent. But he speaks perfect English in a region where most people don't speak good English. You'd think he'd get picked up if you're an amazing all-star player. Let's go to the jungler, Svenskeren. He actually didn't get picked up by anyone after he got left that NIP team. No one was knocking down his door. Meanwhile, there's teams who needed a good jungler, you know. Then you go to the mid laner, Jezis. He wouldn't even be in LCS if he hadn't been picked up by SK. Then we go to the bot lane. N-Rated might have been out of League of Legends entirely or playing in what I call EU challenger scene, LCS NA for like CLG or some team like that. I'm honestly just fucking people. But he might not even be in a EU LCS right now. Then CandyPanda. CandyPanda was potentially going to get kicked from SK. He was going to have to go and join some fucking Copenhagen Wolves or some shit. It was getting bad, man. It was getting bad. So you can see this lineup, it's fair, right? It wasn't a good lineup on paper.
Of course, it was like on paper, it was complete trash. But we just work well together as persons. I think it sounds so easy, but I think that's all there is to it. And then the spot psychologist helped us as well. Even before him, like we had a good team synergy, but he just improved it even more. And of course, like we're not bad players.
Yeah.
Can actually keep up with. I mean, of course, we're not as good, or we weren't as good as like Alliance individually, but we're picking that up as well. So
who is the player in the team who, if you had to say one of these 5 players could potentially be an all-star or could be the best at his position, who's the number one guy out of SK in that sense, do you think?
I mean, I could name myself because I think I'm in a pretty good state right now, but
I think you just did.
yeah, sure. But
Even if you now say, but of course I wouldn't do that. I'm a very fair man. I believe the young Jesus lad's done rather well this season. So yeah, it's CandyPanda, right?
Say, but,
it's Candy the
but
carry.
no one would believe me because he's not like we're not popular. We don't have like 100k
sure.
Twitter followers, so it would sound ridiculous if I say it. But just from scale wise, yeah, sure, we're not as good, but as a team wise, like team play wise, we're just owning it in that regard. So
It's true, you are. And that's what's so impressive. I mean, we talk about you guys all the time on the show because your strategy is like higher up in terms of Western teams, and you just have that great teamwork and shot calling. So I think it's great.
Is it when you hear that comparison, and it's been made a bunch, Cloud9, SK, they're like SK is the Cloud9 of Europe. Suck on that, Cloud9 Europe. Anyway, do you see the comparison? Does it make sense? Have people gone too far to force like a cool storyline there?
no, it's true. I see the similarities. Like, I mean, in 3 months ago, people said as well that Cloud9 players have really picked it up. Like, we actually have strong lanes right now, and we can dominate the early game if we get the right picks.
So one of the interesting things about your team, a dynamic I have noticed happens, is that Freddy's style is more like this, just the solid, won't lose, won't necessarily win, just play the top lane, standard way you're supposed to do it. Jesus, he's a bit more variable as to up and down as to whether he's going to do well, do badly. Usually like picks a champion who he can do well in the team fight later. The main lane that seems to have a lot of the jungle pressure is the bot lane. Someone even made a joke, which was pretty funny actually. They said when I announced that you were coming on this call, they said like, oh, will Svenskeren be in the back of the call as well, just to make sure the interview's good? Like, that's a pretty legit comment. I can't lie. That's something I wish I'd come up with myself. But what do you think?
Yeah, that's interesting because I think it was totally true. In like Spring Split, what happened was that NRED had said one day, okay, look, Candy is probably the best player right now. We should just camp the bot lane. I'm just going to pick Leona in any other game. You're just going to play Pumpkin and we're just going to feed him kills. And Freddy's just going to play some Renekton or whatever. He doesn't need ganks. Jesse's just going to play Ziggs. He doesn't need ganks. So that was our playstyle and worked really well because, yeah, we actually played to our strengths. So, yeah, it's actually true. Like, we basically ganked bot lane only. And I just played something like Vayne or Jinx where I could carry the game. But I don't think that's true anymore either right now. I think we focus a lot of attention to mid lane. As well as bot lane, of course. We divided it up, kind of.
Monty, what do you think of that aspect of their team?
I think it's working for them, and I think it's good that they have this kind of playstyle, especially if we look at what's going to be coming up with the AD carry patch and how much stronger AD carries are going to be for like the first time since Season 2, that we're moving towards a meta that will again be focused around the bottom lane. So I think it's very convenient that SK already has this style in place.
Monty, when you woke up and you saw this news, AD carry buffs, did the table lift up by itself?
I was very excited.
Yeah, exactly. Candy, I know you woke up like, okay, time to bring the old Candy back.
Sure.
I mean, actually, do you actually think that's significant, the buffs?
It will only work, though, if the double Durans and IH item build will actually work as good as everyone says.
So what you're saying is Genja confirmed God 2015?
Probably. I don't know.
What do you think of the changes to the Bloodthirster?
Yeah, I don't actually know. It said it gives a shield, but if it only gives a shield of the amount of lifesteal you get, that would be pretty terrible. But if it just gives a shield like 400 or whatever at level 18, then that would be pretty good. But I think if a Bloodthirster will be the prominent item for AD carries, nothing will change. But if the IH will come into play, I think you can see a lot more champions. And also, actually, no one is talking about, since you get 6% lifesteal with 2 Dorans, Trinity Force is going to be really good as well. Because, like, what
this
happened
really
was
is Genja's patch. Is Genja like the secret Riot developer here?
Yeah, maybe, I don't know. But, like, what happened was that you don't build Trinity Force first because it doesn't give you lifesteal. But now, with 2 Dorans, you can totally build it. So, even Israel or Corki could be really big again.
And the secret passive on Dorans is if you have one eyebrow, then you just get like 5% lifesteal. Anyway. So when people said that scenario about like Svenskeren ganks bot lane all the time, and I've watched, like, he really does. Like, you even do those like old school ganks where it's like he doesn't even come in from the side, he just comes around the back and hides in that one rush where you pink it, and then he just comes out like 3-on-2. Like, what do you... Tell me what the fuck the deal is with Svenskeren. Because actually, I remember, when Nip changed away from the Danish players when they were doing really badly at the beginning of that summer split, everyone else was actually cut from the team, okay? They cut Godbro, they cut the Tess, who was the other one?
Yeah, that's it.
They're the ones they cut, okay. But, technically, I remember them saying at the time that Svenskeren left of his own accord. Like, he wanted to play... Okay. So in theory, he wasn't cut for like performance reasons. Maybe he was good enough still. And I had always heard people saying mechanically he was quite good. I know you actually tried him out for SK at one point. Was that when you weren't in the team anymore?
Yeah, I think that was the time where I left.
Okay. So anyway, he'd always had a rep of being a good player, but he also had this other counterbalancing rep that you must know about, which is that he's toxic as fuck.
No,
Did you already know about this when he came into SK now?
It's funny because everyone says he's toxic as fuck, but there was like this one screenshot where he says these things that's like 3 months old.
Yeah, but those screenshots, those are like the secret documents for the Kennedy assassination or something like that. So if someone finds one of those, you're done. Like, people believe that shit, right?
Yeah, of course. It's like, I don't know, I think people overreacted. But, I mean, yeah, I think you improved a lot as well in that regard. Because we told him as a team, we don't want you to get fined, we don't want you to get banned or whatever, so please improve and then we can continue playing, you know?
That really is how Germans would do it as well. Okay, Mithy, Nuke Duck, welcome to the team. We don't want you to get fined, we don't want you to get banned. Please improve and we can all do well.
Yeah.
See you in the championship. Good gemacht. Anyway, let's keep going. Let me think. Where should we go now? We should keep talking about SK. So I'm trying to think what we'll go to now. Okay, so this split. When you saw last split, okay, you got through the playoffs. You got past Rockat. You had first in the regular split. I wanted to believe, Candy. I wanted to believe that you could win that final. But when I saw Alliance of Fnatic on the other side of the bracket, I was like, I can't believe they'll win. In a best of 5, I can't see how they can beat those two teams. What was the team lacking then to win that final?
Like SK?
Yeah.
You mean last playoffs?
In the final of the play. You remember, I know you've probably blocked it out of your mind. It was like a traumatic event. It was like in a car crash. Like, I remember driving and I was doing really well. I was thinking, what a great driver I am. Then sort of like a truck was coming in my peripheral and I woke up like, oh, that was just a dream. Oh, my legs are all broken. Yeah, what happened in the final where you got put in a fucking dumpster and then they reversed, tipped you into a landfill and then went like, woo, Fnatic 3 times LCS champion. What happened then? Before that parade part?
Well, it might sound really convenient, but we as a team decided that we don't even want to go to All-Stars, so we actually said we
okay, mate. Sorry, unprofessional.
Yeah, as much as we can because we don't want to get burned out.
Yeah, sure.
I know it sounds ridiculous, but that's how.
I mean, I understand that just because like any European team that would have gone to All Stars would have gotten dumpstered. So you know, you just saved yourself really a lot of embarrassment.
Yeah,
hey, listen.
That's the other thing. Like we actually said, if we go to All Stars, we don't want to embarrass you. So we rather not go to All Stars, get the break, than go to All Stars, get dumpstered all 5 games, and then everyone will think we're fucking trash. So
listen,
I think that was actually the right decision, you know.
No, it was because it's the same. Actually, the same thing happened in NA. Like, I didn't want to reveal this now because Monty swore me to secrecy, but I actually promised to tell all my secrets on this show. And actually, Monty had already told CLG just lose in the semis to TS and make it look convincing. Like, just get to a certain point, do the classic CLG throw. I know we don't do those anymore. We only use those for subterfuge. Do that, then what will happen is TSM will think they're really good and they'll try and upgrade a position and then they'll like bring in this EU jungler. It'll all go to shit. Next thing you know, fucking Loco Doco will be coaching them. They'll be middle of the pack. They won't even have their fucking support player anymore. Plus, you know, the other thing is he also wanted to get rid of Neon Tonsil. So what he did was he had Neon Tonsil undergo a sort of Manchurian candidate program where if it got to a 3rd game, Neon Tonsil would irrationally pick like Jax and then just be like, and once he picked it though, he had to lock it in and then the conditioning would wear off and he'd realize the magnitude of what he'd done and you'd see it on his face. And so I don't want, I let you go for a long time, Monty, but I had to eventually reveal it. Like, I feel it's good to get it off my chest.
Wow. Well, thank you for revealing my. I mean, I am called Monte Cristo, so you can expect these very like convoluted plans. And also, you know, in the book, The Count of Monte Cristo, he's all about making his enemies ruin themselves, right? That's like part of the whole plot. So really, I mean, it was brilliant, the whole TSM thing. Like, it really couldn't have worked out better for me.
Yeah, in many ways, you freed TSM and made them into free SM.
That's right.
Shout out to you, Nien, for that one. Anyway. With enough of the burns, back to the show. What was that even that we were talking about there? Oh yeah, when you were saying that you didn't want to go to All Stars. So okay, the reason I ask what has changed is because going into this season, okay, maybe Fnatic are weaker. We don't know yet. Maybe they do pick it up again like they always seem to. But Alliance seems stronger. Like, they actually seem like they fixed some of their problems. So the problem is, even if you could beat Fnatic now in a best of 5, people are going to say, well, look at Alliance. They've got all the all-star players, you know. They've got players that could potentially be the best at every position. Maybe not top lane, but all those other positions are pretty legit right there, you know.
Yeah.
How could SK beat Alliance in a best of 5?
I think it would be really close. I mean, we played one match with them. We lost it in a 45-minute game that could have gone either way.
Yeah, that last match, by the way, I want to talk about that because that was not a very good game. There were a lot of
the ending was
mistakes
pretty
in that
crappy.
game.
Well, actually, you say it's a lot of mistakes, but like both of us didn't want to give up any objectives, so we just clashed every time, and then there were so many deaths that game.
Have you considered moving to the LPL?
Well.
Let me sell you on it, Candy.
Better.
It's all about playing the AD carry position. The jungler only ganks bot. I think you can see you're going to love this. They're going to love this role here.
Right.
Yeah. The top laners play supportive. Imagine that. I think it's the region for you, bro. No, but that's the thing. Okay, people are going to think I'm busting your balls when I ask you that. But if you look at Alliance now, are we just overrating? Like they've had the really strong, the Fnatic style early start where you just wreck everyone essentially. Have they really significantly upgraded? Are they still like similar to the team they were before? Have they fixed the shot calling essentially? Do you think?
Yeah, of course. They're really good now.
What do you mean? Yeah, of course. They were fucking terrible at shot calling before. They can't have just instantly changed that. Are they really that much better?
I mean, they were good players. It was just a matter of time till they figure out how to play the game as a team. So now it happened, and they're good.
Does Incarnation ever play 1v1 against other people in the team?
Only Jesse, and only if he wants to know a specific matchup. Which doesn't happen often, because... Yeah?
If he came into LCS now, would he really be like a top 3 mid?
I don't know.
You must have a sense. I mean, listen, you've played everyone in Europe who's ever been on solo queue. You've seen all the people who are at the top, the challengers. You've seen White Knight. You've seen this guy. You've seen Pharrell Lord. You've seen Froggen. You've seen them all, right? Are people overrating the solo queue aspect? Does he actually have that sort of prospect where he actually could be like a Froggen type person if he got on the right team?
Yeah, sure. If he has a good communication with his jungler, and like just from the lane wise, and if his jungler's good, he's gonna be really good. Sure.
Okay.
He has that mechanical skill, but that's not all, you know.
No.
It's like only like 25% of the game. So I think it would be stupid to say he would be top 3 mid just because of that. Just lane wise, and if his jungler would be equal to the other jungler, he would probably beat most of the mids. But that's about it. What I can judge, you know. Okay,
so mechanics only 25% of the game. Doublelift's still working on the other 75%, but Monte's going to help him with that. No, but anyway, so here's the problem with the statement that you've made there. Like you've said, like, yeah, maybe he could be really good in LCS. Well, the problem with that is everyone in the world who's like an armchair general manager thinks that as soon as Incarnation gets unbanned, he'll join a team and he'll come and play in LCS, so he won't be helping you guys out anymore. Do you really get this sense that it'll happen?
He might. I mean, right now, there's not any time soon till he gets unbanned, so... you know. But I think a lot of people are interested in him. If he gets unbanned, at least a lot of teams will try him out. That's for sure.
Okay, fair enough. In terms of where you stack up, last split, early on, SK started to do well. And there was an AMA by Alex Itch, and he was asked to pick his best player at each position. And he picked CandyPanda as the AD carry. And someone even said, like, oh, CandyPanda? And he was like, yeah, he's a beast, man. Now, is, like, Alex Itch, like, your best mate? And he's, like, going to be at your wedding and stuff. And he owed you, like, 25 quid. And you were like, listen, you want to pay it back easy? I've got a way we can do it. Like, why did he pick you as the best AD carry early on?
I don't know. We actually don't talk much. Like, I talked with him a few times, but I think he just said it because he thought so. It's not like I convinced him or paid him like €5.
Did you get the sense that you were at that level, though, at the time?
At that time, sure. But it was also because like my lane just got camped, and we basically just played those easy combos like Leona Pantheon and like just free kills everywhere. Was it really easy to carry as well?
People keep saying that last split, the bot lanes in Europe were all even. Like, you know, everyone had a good bot lane, everyone was good, every fucking AD carry was really good. Like, there must be a differentiation between them. Did you see a tier of people like this? These are the absolute best ones. This is the next team. What
I
did you
think
think?
in lane Forgiven was really, really fucking good.
Was he the best?
Yeah, I think so for sure. He was
When you
really
say in
good.
lane, what are you meaning? Trading, just farming? What kind
Yeah, trading, lane control, wave control. Sure.
Didn't
But
people used to
honestly-
say the same thing though, that he was just camped all the time?
Yeah, sure. That was because if you push, like he basically just pushed all the time with Karma, Caitlyn, or Jinx. And so if you push all the time, you're very prone to ganks. So what happens if you're pushing and the enemy is low? You know you're gonna get ganked. You just tell your jungler to come down, and then you're gonna be stronger 3v3. So that's how it worked. He got
Oh.
camped, but not because he
Yeah.
was bad, because he was just snowballing his advantage.
Sure. Monty, you've heard this famous thing about how NA has the bot lanes and how EU has weak bot lanes. What did you think?
I don't think that's true. I mean, I think that a lot of people rely on these generalizations that were relevant like 2 years ago, yet have no bearing on reality any longer.
Like Reginald's really good recruitments?
Yeah, well, that's true.
Loco Doco being a really good AD carry. Yeah, there's a long list. We can't go through them all on the show. But what do you think of the bot lanes in Europe? Like, did you buy into this hype of like Reckless is the god of the West, no AD
No,
carry?
Reckless is really good. I mean, Candy's good. Like Tabs is good. There are a lot of good AD carries in Europe, that's for sure, and a lot of good support players too. So I don't really think that there's that big of a difference. And I think honestly, like let's take a look right now at the AD carries in NA. Okay, we have Vasily, who's a Chinese player who is mechanically good but doesn't make the best decisions all the time. I think Doublelift is clearly the best AD carry in North America right now, but Wild Turtle has fallen off significantly. TSM's bottom lane is not good right now. Who else? Cop, no. Cutie Pie, he's doing okay.
He's doing okay. He's doing pretty well.
Yeah, he's doing pretty well. But
Fine, sneaky.
Steaky's doing pretty well, but it's not like there aren't any there. I think there are actually more outstanding AD carries in Europe right now than there are in North America.
Candy, what do you think?
Yeah. Yeah, sure.
No, not yeah, sure.
Like if,
please
if
give me
you
an
just go,
opinion.
yeah, sorry, I had to cough. But if you just go like compare them to the region, like Tops, me, Reckless, Woolite.
Yeah,
Oh God.
even Mr. Rawl is pretty good. Like you don't
Oh,
look.
Mr. Rouse, yeah.
I'm trying to think about like these European AD carries right now, and I think that they're like everybody is actually pretty good in Europe right now. There's not. I'm trying to think of somebody who's like really underperforming. Maybe
I think
Salaver.
Creator is a bit, yeah, and Salava is like, they're probably a bit below, but they could step it up too.
Who was the other
I
one
mean,
you
Rock-
said aside from Saliva? Woolite?
Woolite.
No, it's Creaton.
Creaton. Creaton's underperforming?
Yeah, I think so.
Didn't he go
Everyone's
fucking
over-
ham in week
I-
one?
I don't know. Everyone on Millennium went ham, but
Okay.
that was week one. I mean, it's 3 weeks in now, and they haven't shown the same performance.
Is AD carry used differently in Europe, Candy? Like, why, if we have players like Creaton, Reckless, Forgiven, why aren't these considered, like, why aren't they ever considered as good as, like, Doublelift, as good as Piglet, Imp, Uzi Eye, Nami? Why are they never, in these discussions, put up there at that level? Is it a different style of AD carry, do you think?
Question. I don't actually know. No clue, actually.
Monty, you've got a theory on this?
I'm sorry, what?
Do you have a theory as to why, even if we've just all praised all these good AD carries, even some really good mechanical ones, but no one, as even in the generalization, does consider them up there with the top Asian carries, or even Doublelift, who's always the name, who was always added to that list of the Asians, okay? Do you have a reason as to why? Maybe something about the style of play in Europe with AD carry?
I mean, I don't know. I think most people around the world consider Reckless top, and even because Reckless has had a chance to play against Korean teams, even in interviews with Korean teams and stuff like that, they're pretty complimentary of Reckless's style of play.
I mean, come on, we have to take a grain of salt when a Korean player is talking.
No,
to
no,
I
I think it's actually honest. I mean, Reckless. The problem with Reckless is that his decision making is not good, and he doesn't have a shot caller on his team to basically, control him and push him around the map where he needs to go. And that we've talked about this before, but he farms waves. Like when he shouldn't be farming, he doesn't move around the map. He doesn't rotate
Turns
quickly
up to
enough.
Fights late, doesn't always initiate.
But that's because you got to keep a leash on your AD carry. Got to make sure they're in the right place at the right time, because they're usually very focused on their mechanics and everything like that. So there are very few, I think, AD carries that don't need to be told what to do, and that's not because they're dumb or anything like that. It's just that it's the nature of the position requires a lot more micro-based focus.
Tunnel vision, sure.
Tunnel vision, yeah. And so you have to gently guide your AD carry from lane to lane.
Okay.
Don't you like it when somebody holds your hand, CandyPanda?
Yeah, of course. I mean, yeah, sure. I'm not focusing on lane rotations or whatever. I'm just focusing on trading.
Exactly.
And making sure I get the farm and the kills.
Don't you love it when Svenskeren says, "Why don't you come mid and siege this tower? This is a great idea." And you're like, "Yes."
Well, actually, I'm pretty willing to do that. I'm like, yeah, sure, we're gonna win this game.
I know. See, that's the mark of a good AD carry.
But only if I pushed bottom before, and I know that then we lose like 2 waves. Then it's fine. It's not. But I think the other thing is actually like European AD carries couldn't actually prove themselves against other regions except Reckless. I mean, Tops me forgiven at that time. That like we can't really play against anyone else.
But you will get your chance, won't you, this year?
I hope so. I hope so.
When you talked about the NA people before, where does Sneaky actually rank?
You asking me or?
Yeah, asking you, the AD carry.
Well, I don't follow NA so much, but
Who does?
I think he's pretty good.
Yeah, he's pretty good.
Like, I think apart from Doublelift, he's probably the second best.
Yeah,
I think as Monto said, like he fell off so hard. I saw him always perform well, but right now he's just feeding basically every game. So I don't know. There's not really anyone else. I'm a Cutie Pie, who's good, but I think he's mainly just good because his team is doing good as well. So he looks better as well. I don't think he's like the star of the team. Yeah.
I did an interview with Freeze, and he gave me some strange but interesting opinions on AD carries around the world. So I'm going to give you 2 pieces of information here at the same time. He told me that Reckless is overrated, that Reckless does the things we've described here, farms too much, like doesn't join in the fights enough. But then simultaneously, he told me that Sneaky is the best AD carry in the West. He's just the best, man. Mechanically, even he's really good. He's just great on all those champions. And then he told me Sneaky is better than Reckless. Thoughts, Candy?
I think it's pretty baseless that he said that. Like, they never played each other. Well, actually, they do play each other quite often. But still, like, I don't think there was ever a time where Sneaky just dominated Reckless in lane.
If you had to pick an AD carry to start a team with, which one are you picking?
If I would have to start a team, which AD carry I would pick?
I would take Reckless. As long as I had somebody there to leash him in.
You say leash, Monty. What you'd probably need is someone there who did an equal part of the team, and then they all just did equal shot calls and just agreed. That's the ideal setup.
No. That is not what I mean.
Candy, who would you take to start your franchise? The starting AD carry position. That's what we're going to build this team from. Reckless, Sneaky. Who do you want? It's like you must really hate Reckless because you know you're about to say it, but you're like, is there any way I can not say Reckless? Like,
I'm pretty good friends with him. I talk with him a lot about AD carries.
Okay, you don't want to give him too many props then? Like, keep him in his place, you know?
No, I would say Reckless as well. Just because he's better individually. I think if you're going to start a new team, Reckless probably fits in any team. Sneaky probably won't.
Okay.
Like, Reckless playstyle is just foolproof. Whatever happens, he will do good. Can't go wrong with that.
You told me here Forgiven was maybe the best in the laning phase, like the best at trading, this sort of stuff. And as I kind of referenced as well, their whole team was basically set up to, like, it was the Forgiven show. Like, he's the star. Let's put everything on Forgiven. We're going to try and have him carry the game. He's the best player in our team.
Yeah.
How can Forgiven not be on a top LCS team now?
Well,
How can someone this talented, think about any other region in the world, I can't think of a player who could be the best individually.
Because his attitude is awful.
yeah. I think it's not even only that though. Like, the good teams have their good AD carries. I mean,
Better than
SK
Forgiven?
Fnatic. But I wouldn't say I'm worse than Forgiven. I wouldn't say Reckless is worse than Forgiven. Tops is not worse than Forgiven. And then the bad teams, like, no, not the bad teams, but like the bottom 4 teams, he doesn't want to join them because he feels like it would be waste of his potential. Like, he wrote on his Facebook many times that he doesn't want to join a bad team. So I think that's also part of the reason. And then, of course, that he's pretty toxic to his team members.
Because here's an interesting thing I was thinking about the other day. When you compare the regions of EU and NA, just talent base alone over the years, unless Monty can correct me if I'm wrong here, as far as I can tell, almost every single really good player, really skilled player in NA, not only played for as many years as he could and as many teams as he could and waited until the bitter end, till they crowbarred his fucking hands off that mouse and put a new guy in there, but almost none of them ever retired at their own terms, okay? In Europe, there's actually been lots of really good players who either retired or couldn't get on a team. Svenskeren wasn't on a team for a year there. Extinct had to just straight up retired, couldn't get a mid lane position. Tabs couldn't get a mid lane position. Who do we have recently? We have Forgiven now, can't get on a team. Alex Itch has left the league. Like, the actual talent base in Europe seems like underrated in that sense. Like, maybe is there a reason why Europe doesn't make the most of it? Why LNA is making the absolute most of all the talent they have? Monty, you look disgusted right now. Tell me why you are disgusted.
No, I'm not disgusted, man.
Oh, man.
Thoughts, anyone?
I don't know, maybe it's just a different mindset. Maybe the EU players just value the happiness more than the publicity they get. Maybe.
Monty, you have a theory?
No, I can't get into their heads on this one.
Yeah.
You can't hazard a guess as to why the scenes would work like that?
Nope. I find it kind of puzzling myself.
Okay. Because actually, the funny thing is, on this show we've had this discussion multiple times, and almost every NA player agrees that it's hard to find challenger talent who is good enough to replace some of these players. Okay, in the LCS NA, yet in EU, every split brings 1 or 2 players who become the best at their position. Just think of the last 2 splits we've had. Lemon Dog's team came in. We had who do we have? We had Reckless come in now. We had
Super good now.
Yeah, obviously not. Did you just say Super Hot Crew now?
Like, they're pretty good. They came in.
Which one of them is the best at their position?
I think Mr. Rat is pretty good.
He's the best at his position, is he?
No, but I think right now, like, the top 5 AD carries are all best at their position. They're all equally good.
Well, in that case, Mr. Alice must be even better than all of you then, because he's playing with a way worse team, and then he's doing just as good. So, Reckless has Yellow Star, Expeke. So, okay, Mr. Alice confirmed best AD carry in Europe. Okay, we've got that out of the way.
Confirmed.
No, but you can't. Come on, dude. I know in your heart you don't really think everyone's
his
equal.
His team is third place, man. What the fuck? I know you hate Super Crew.
I don't hate Super Hot Crew at all.
Oh, yeah,
Listen,
yeah, okay.
I just think that their name rhymes with a funnier name. And I'd sometimes mention that. SSC represent.
But I think that's their place. They're pretty good right now.
You want to talk about that? You want to talk about why Super Hot Crew's good?
I don't know what they're good. I don't even know if they're good. I have to see more of them.
The way in 2 sentences you just backtrack completely, and now you're on the Super Shit Crew bandwagon. Yeah, exactly. Except the problem is, after you've seen more of them, you might wish you'd seen less of them. But anyway, let's talk about that topic. Super Hot Crew. Super Hot Crew, sponsored by Acer. Let's talk about this team then, because coming into this split, I mean, I'm guessing most people thought what I thought, which is they're going to be... I thought they would be either the worst or the second worst with Copenhagen Wolves. I thought it has to be these two, just based on how the last split was, okay? I don't know any of these teams, how they scrim or any of that shit. What's changed about Super Hot Crew? CandyPanda.
It's hard to say. They
Yeah,
changed
but just
their
go ahead
support
anyway.
player. Yeah, I will try. I will do my best. I think Mixka didn't play the game anymore.
I mean, that's going to be a
Except
limitation
strengths.
right there, yeah.
that's a big limitation. So we Rafaela is much better in that regard. I think he also does a lot more shot calls. I think that's it.
You know what?
I think that the rest of the teams got a lot worse too. I mean,
Yeah.
Did they?
well, we talked about this before. Yeah, like I think Alliance and SK are benefiting in the same way Super Hot Crew is. Fnatic isn't performing.
I've got a
Millennium
counterpoint for you.
was bottom last time. Alex Itch is gone.
Yeah.
Roccat mysteriously died.
Here's the thing. On the whole, that's right, okay. Roccat and Gambit are way worse. Well, no, way worse is ridiculous. Rockat's way worse. Gambit are like, let's say, 30% worse. They're doing all right. Copenhagen Wolves way worse. Fnatic not doing as well. SK and Alliance. Alliance better maybe. SK the same. So at the moment, overall, in totality, we've got worse league here. But actually, I think that's where Super Hot Crew and Millennium have moved up the rankings. Because they actually got slightly better. Millennium, adding Cotton X, seems to have made them better. And now they have motivation because they know they're not the shittest team in the league, so they actually practice, etc. Super Hot Crew got Selfie, who's clearly a huge upgrade over Moops. And then they also got We Will Failer, who, say what you want about whether he's toxic or not, he seems to be doing pretty decently so far. And he was already...
And the analyst, of course.
Yeah, he was... And they got an analyst, exactly. Our favourite, Last Shadow, shout-outs. And so these two teams actually maybe improved a little bit. So that's one area where maybe Europe got a bit better. But... Oh, fuck, what was my point there? I actually had a point to make. Every now and then I have a point. Oh, I have a point to make here. I'm going to use my position... I'm going to use my powers for good now, not evil. I'm going to actually call someone out for some bullshit that needs to be called out in the pro scene that no one's mentioned. Does anyone remember when Super Hot Crew didn't make it into the promotion series? Some like guy called Nif 1v9'd and he got SK into the league. And then he said, right, that's all I can do. I'm only a support player. I'm not a miracle worker. I've got to go to a good team now. He went off to Alliance. And then... then what happened? Yeah, I'm getting lost in my own shit here. And then he went off to Alliance. And then Super Hot Crew weren't in LCS. They were like, okay, end of our careers. Well, if you can call them careers. Sort of end of that fantasy camp of trying to be an LCS team. The Make-A-Wish Foundation called. The wish is over. You're all dead. And then what happened was they got this second chance where Incarnation had access to 00's PC and he deleted League of Legends and put like a runtime script in the BIOS, like do not install, get to 99% and do not. And then they dropped out. And then what happened was LCS, actually Riot came to Super Hot Crew and they said, listen, really sorry, you can't play against Snip, so we're going to give you a walkover. But just go through the motions and play against this team called NYM just to pretend like it was a match. They're really bad, don't worry. And they did that and they got into LCS. I think this is exactly how the story goes. It's like the official canon version. They got into LCS, okay. And Mixer, this fellow from maybe France or something, I don't really follow where people are from. I don't like to differentiate by nation or nationality or ethics or anything. And so they got into LCS and he made a post on Reddit that got upvoted. It was a self-post and it said something along the lines of like, when I didn't get into... You remember this post, Candy?
Yeah, I do.
The post said, like, and it was really emotional. It was sort of like a pouring out of his soul. He said, listen, when I didn't get into LCS, I was depressed. I actually thought about committing suicide. This is real. I'm not even joking now. He actually said, I thought about committing suicide. Like, I thought, like, I'd blown my one chance, but then I got into LCS. And I got a chance now, and I can say I've did it to all those people who said I couldn't do it. And, well, by the way, sidebar, you didn't do it. You failed to get into LCS. They were right. You probably should have actually retired. Shut up. Anyway, back on topic. That's director's cut there. Back onto the real version. He said, like, I proved them all wrong. I proved them all wrong. They said Laura Zero's client would download and NYM would be a good team. Anyway, whatever. He said, I proved them all wrong, and now I've got a chance to live my dream. You know that famous like quote that like Riot love to plaster all over shit? Like, I'm living my dream right now. I'm in LCS. It's great. So he gets into this chance to live his dream, okay. He's in LCS. He's playing for Super Hot Crew. Initially, they did all right. I think at one point they were 4th in the league or something after like 3 or 4 weeks. Seemed like it was going okay. Then their team went to shit because SK got really good, Alliance got really good, Millennium don't exist, Copenhagen Wolves got half decent. Who else? Roccat got better. Everyone got better, and Super Hot Crew, as they naturally should have, slid down and they became the second worst team. Listen, no big deal. Your first season in the league, you're not even supposed to be in the league. But you get in, you get some experience under your belt, you play, you get you're seasoned as a pro. Next split, you qualify again, you come back, you improve on things. No. What he did was, he even said this motivation. He stopped playing, he didn't want to practice anymore, and then he just quit entirely once he was out of the league. Always kicked and just said he quit. If this was your dream, if you were going to commit suicide because you don't get it, this is one of those things like, be careful what you ask for because you might get it. You were going to kill yourself because you didn't get an LCS. Then you got a new LCS, and now you're like, yeah, but now I'm losing. Yeah, I don't really like this League of Legends game. Oh, Hearthstone's out. Cool, where's the new cards? Like, come on, man. If you're going to live your dream, don't sell me that bullshit if you're not going to do it. I'm just going to call someone out there because that's a righteous call out, dude. That's bullshit to do that. Thoughts? Anyone else want to come into this minefield? Going to leave me out here on my own?
I mean, I'm not going to pretend to know about his mental state, or perhaps he was trying to obviously he was trying to express himself. But I think that to do that in the community and then just like immediately lose motivation and then publicly say that you lost motivation is just quite strange.
I've never understood players who say they lose motivation. Like, to me, I've never understood. Maybe Candy can talk about this. I don't understand motivation as like an external force. To me, motivation comes when internally you're in the right place. Like, this is what I want to do right now. Like, I'm keyed in. I want to be good. I want to I'm trying to improve, so I'm getting satisfaction from shoring up my weaknesses or improving a little bit. Then I'm motivated out externally, okay? Motivation isn't when you sit around and someone's like, you could do it, man. Do it now. Come on. And then you get up like, yeah. Like, what do you think, Candy? You've played a lot, many, many years. What's motivation like in that sense?
You can lose motivation pretty easily if...
Give me some examples of what would make you lose motivation,
Sure, like, the thing I had was that in the summer split in 2013, what happened was, like, I was pretty motivated to get to Worlds, but as soon as you start losing and the other team members, like, start to lose motivation as well, and then it just spirals down, and you're not, like, you might have motivation, but you're just helpless. You can't just put your team and like carry them since it's a team game. So if you're just helpless, you're gonna lose motivation as well. And also the 3 months of one split is pretty draining. You're basically giving up everything to go in a gaming house and play the game for 3 months only. So some people, I can imagine it's pretty draining for them. It is for me. I need a break after every split as well. Like, you don't visit your family, you don't visit your friends, whatever. You're just there playing the game. It's not as easy as everyone thinks.
Okay, on this topic... Whoa, what the fuck? I actually just changed scenes there. What the fuck? What's going on here, XSplit? Stop fucking with my life. Okay, it's back. I'm gonna... On that topic, how we need a break sometimes, we're gonna have a 60-second ad break. If I can actually figure out what button you press to do such a thing. And we'll be back in 60 seconds, okay? So I'll mute everyone's mics and put the bit. I don't know. That might fuck things up. I don't know what's going on. Technology is hard. I don't know. But I'm not going to give up. I'm going to keep trying and live my dream of making this fucking ad work. So we'll see you in 60 seconds. Anyway, let's talk a bit now about... Did you watch North America recently, Candy? Do you watch any of their games?
Yeah, of course. I do.
Did you watch 2 awesome games this week?
I watched the
versus
good ones.
CLG, C9 versus
like
CLG.
Basically, yeah, I did. But basically every week there's like 2 good games. Because the rest is like C9 versus CG, CLG versus Complexity, or whatever. It's like, I know who will win. There's nothing to watch. But LMQ versus CG or versus C9, they're always good games.
Yeah, sure.
Or Dignitas.
So the big hyped game this week. Dun dun dun. Dignitas. The team who none of them know strategically how to play the game. They don't understand shot calling. We're going to play against CLG. Monty's not in the game. That's their big problem, actually. They were going to play against CLG, this team who some would say also don't understand shot calling, but they have someone angrily berate them about shot calling after every game, and then eventually some of it gets in there. It's sort of like if you traumatize a dog too much by like telling it, like, don't do that, eventually it will stop pissing on the carpet. Like, that will happen, I promise. So, when they played this game, Monty predicted, they'd go well, they'd win. How did it go, Monty? Dig versus CLG.
Could have gotten better, but we did win eventually. It was a bit of a heart attack situation, but we pulled through. It was good.
I was very surprised about the Kassadin, that you left him open.
We weren't really worried about Shifter's Kassadin.
He wasn't
he's
wrecking.
a bad Kassadin, or like Kassadin in general is not that good?
I think that by leaving picks like Caston open, it enables like kind of the bad habits of Dignitas to come out in terms of we know how they like to play with feeding their solo laners and that emphasis. And that, I mean, Link and Afro talked about this in the interview afterwards, but by giving them these carries, as long as we group in Siege, this Kassadin isn't going to be able to do much. And, you can get ahead in the laning phase against Kassadin still, even after the rework. And it's just a matter of knowing your opponent's style and then having your own style in order to counteract it. And that Kassadin really didn't do much in that game.
Yeah.
I think under most circumstances, you're right. It's an extremely dangerous pick to leave up. But when you have confidence that you're going to be able to group and take objectives better, that Kassadin doesn't mean a whole lot because he needs to be able to get picks. And if you don't give them opportunities to get picks, then he doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it was just surprising because he can like snowball so easily. If he gets 1-2 picks, that's really
you
hard.
made it sound there a little bit too much like you had this awesome plan, Monty. Like, listen, I wanted to play into the weaknesses of Dignitas. Like, dude, weren't they like doing great for like the first 15 minutes or 20 minutes or something? They were like in control of that game, right?
Well, right, but it takes you expect that too when you're running like Nidalee because she is weak levels 1 through 6.
So what you're saying is, early in the game, if someone has a Nidalee, you shouldn't expect their team to be ahead. But if they were to come back later and win that game, that would make sense. What do you think, Monty? I'm just asking a question. Listen, I just like to ask questions.
First off, I think there's a big difference between the C9 and the Dignitas game, just because the gold difference, the lead was nowhere near as great. Right. I mean, CLG had a massive advantage in the Cloud9 game, and we played that lead very poorly. I mean, CLG totally threw that game. That's probably the game that I'm the most mad about. And obviously, we have some stuff to work on. There are 2 games this season, LMQ, and the second game against Cloud9, where we had a distinct advantage and really messed it up.
Hey, Monty, I just had an ice lolly here, and in England, on ice lollies, they print jokes, okay? And it's always a question and an answer. Question: what do you call a team who throws 3 team fights in a row?
What?
A bad team.
Yeah, fair enough.
How is it possible? Like a throw.
I just said we played badly, man. I don't know what you want.
No, because that's the thing. You're saying you played badly. I actually think it's more like if you played badly. Okay, this is how you play badly. You're doing quite well all the way through, but it's a close game. You get in one situation where you could have made the play to win the game. You make totally the wrong play, someone flashes in a wall, you make the wrong strategical call, you lose the game. That's a throw. It's not a throw when you take one fight, bad fight, lose that fight, lose people, back off, take another fight, lose that fight, bad fight, back off, take another fight, lose that fight, bad fight, back off. That's just you're getting categorically beaten at a certain phase of the game.
That's the worst kind of throw.
Yep.
That's like the worst feeling.
Well,
Yeah,
no,
like losing one big fight and then losing the game. Okay,
I
but
mean,
if you just own slowly.
I think that this last game against Cloud9 was CLG's worst game of the season so far. That's it. We played badly.
Because here's the thing, okay? If someone says you threw, then we'd look for a play maybe that could have been changed or a decision that could have been made. Weren't these like categorical mistakes?
No, the Cloud9 game was so many mistakes being made. It wasn't.
It was also Cloud9 being fucking amazing, though.
Yes, it's true.
Every other team in LCS, you could have made those same mistakes, and you might still even have won the game, I think.
Well, that's the weird thing about Cloud9 is that they are like really inconsistent. And a lot of people have said this, but they seem to be playing to the level of their opponents right now, where when they play against us, they actually play a lot better than when they go up against like EG or Complexity, you know?
Like, I thought that when I watched that game, okay, first thing I thought was, like, Link has missed 3 gold cards in a row that could win the game if he lands them. Which, again, that's bad play individually. But okay, maybe that's counted as like that wouldn't normally happen. But the main thing I thought wasn't thinking like, oh, CLG played badly here. I thought like, Jesus Christ, Cloud9 can be 8k gold difference behind against a team whose star player has all his items and is fed, and they can still win all these team fights. That's fucking amazing. This team fighting is incredible. Thoughts?
And our team fighting was terrible. It was a very disappointing game.
What did you think of that game, Candy? C9 versus Dig.
I think like, sneaky with a lot of good Twitch ults. They were like not easy to avoid, but could be avoided much better. Like he always hit like 2-3 people, and then of course the spears. Like there was some compilation on YouTube, like 44 spears in one game.
Also, another thing, come on, Monty, if we're talking about like great plays, bad plays, that play from high, he almost fucking killed 4 people by himself at the Baron.
Well, the Baron call was terrible in the first place, so.
Why does your team make these Baron calls? Didn't we have a conversation, Monty, a few weeks ago where everyone on the call agreed when you're ahead in a game, you never go for the Baron. If you can lose it, you just bait them and force them to attack you, or you go and take towers.
Well, exactly. And, we did a 4-for-0 in the mid lane. Italy was the only one up. And, you don't go for the Baron in that case. And Italy has very low wave clear. You push towers.
Yeah. Isn't Nidalee also one of the few champions in that scenario who can fuck you up 1v5 at Baron and just throw spears in all the time? You're trapped in that little area.
If you're low, you're taking Magic Shred from Baron, which makes those spears even more dangerous. And it literally is like shooting fish in a barrel. It was a terrible decision.
I don't want you to throw anyone under the bus, but what does a team like yours say after a game like that when that sort of a decision's made? Like, what happened? How could they make a call like that? Did they have like a good reason? Like, I thought this was going to happen, and
I will tell you tomorrow when I actually talk to the team about it. So they had their day off today, so we haven't reviewed the VOD, but it's not going to be the most fun VOD review session for them tomorrow.
I have another topic to ask you about, Monty. This might be one that you might not enjoy. This fellow called Seraph continued to disappoint. Am I wrong? He lost against Zion Spartan, and he did pretty badly in C9 game, right?
I don't think he did. I think his nerves are a big issue right now, I think. And yes, I do agree that his play hasn't been what we would like it to be, obviously. But there's a big difference between what we see with Seraph in scrims and his performance during the LCS. And that's, I think a lot of it is his nerves, and you heard it the Double Lift interview too, where Double Lift said after the Dignitas game, Seraph went to the bathroom and threw up, and I think he's got a lot of pressure on him right now, and that's something that we need to address as a team for sure. So, I think he is underperforming. That's
the thing
it.
is, though, there's actually a positive has come out of the fact that he's underperformed, which is I think you've seen that CLG don't actually need a dominant top laner. They don't even need their top laner to win. If he just can go even, that would probably be enough to make CLG a strong team. Maybe even the best in the region, right?
Well, right. That's always been the case with CLG. That's just our style.
Fair enough. Who does CandyPanda think is the best team in NA right now?
Holy.
Gun to your head, you have to tell me now who's the best.
I think it's so hard to tell.
See, now it's so hard for him to answer right at the moment. So what I'm going to do instead is, you remember that scene in X-Men First Class where the character who was played by Kevin Bacon, he's trying to get Magneto to use his powers to move that coin, and he asks him politely, you can have some of this chocolate if you can move this coin, but he can't do it. He's trying, he really wants to move the coin, but he can't do it. So he brings in his mother, and then he pulls out a gun and he says, either you move the coin at 3 or I shoot. So, who's the best team in NA?
Have to shoot me, I guess. I don't know. I think right now it's Dignitas, CLG, and LMQ.
Over C9?
And C9. C9
No, come on, it can't be and C9.
You
know what? I kind of like Curse too. And Cole, I love the mustaches.
Right, it's so random. It's so random right now.
Okay.
Yeah, it is.
There's no team that's clearly the best.
I agree, and there are just so many flaws. It's just easy to pick up on these strengths and flaws with each of the teams in the top, and it depends on who fixes them faster over the course of the season.
Okay, I've got a fun topic for you here. We're going to revisit a famous gimmick part of the show from last time. It's called the Jat Dilemma. Jat Dilemma 2.0 time. Last time the Jat Dilemma was that he simultaneously thought C9 dominating NA showed how strong C9 was, but that when SKT dominated OGN, that showed that maybe OGN was weak. Maybe Korea was weak. So here's the new Jat Dilemma. The casters on LCS NA will always joke, and they do it jokingly, but it's really what their real opinion is. It's quite obvious from how they repeat it and make conclusions based on it. That in Europe, it's inconsistent, and you can't tell who's good, and it's up and down, and you can't even, there's no rhyme or reason. Whereas in NA, obviously Cloud9 was dominating, TSM was dominating. I'd say this season, it's NA that's the most inconsistent, and EU is more tiered. Where in Europe we have the two top teams, then we have the next three teams, then we have the two bottom teams. Whereas, the bottom three teams. Over in NA now, you can't even tell who the top two teams are. I could ask 10 different people, and they could all make a good case for each one.
I totally agree.
And here's the other thing. Before the season started, these same casters and pundits and experts also said, EU will be so weak this season, while in NA it's going to be really strong. Actually, what's funny is, I think nearly every team in NA is weaker in one specific area, except Dignitas, who just got a better team, so they haven't gotten weaker in that sense. So CLG haven't figured out the Seraph thing yet. That's still like an X factor. Like, we don't know what's going to happen there. Yep. TSM are clearly worse. They were supposed to have upgraded, remember? LMQ, maybe LMQ haven't because they weren't in LCS. I'll give you that one. C9 look a bit worse. They're actually still winning games, but they look a bit worse. Who else have we got? That's pretty much it. Again, we've got key weaknesses here. Whereas actually, if you look at SK and Alliance, these are as good or better than last season. They might be the best they can be. Monty?
Well, also, again, we go back to Europe. That in general, I think it's easier to be consistent in Europe now. That some of the big titans like Gambit have kind of fallen straight on their faces, right? And even some of the lower tier teams like the Copenhagen Wolves, like losing Amazing and like all this other shit, has contributed to increase in consistency in Europe. And obviously we have, I think, SK and Alliance improving, and then some other teams kind of going down. And then the roster changes have, at least in the short term at the beginning of the season, they have destabilized North America a little bit.
And by the way, just because retards need this reiterating over and over, we think that Jat's a really good caster. But when someone makes strange comments like that, you have to pick up on it, okay? And so, I'll tell you, by the way, just as an aside, here's a hilarious comment from last night's cast that I remember watching. Just before Complexity played against LMQ, did you watch this game, Monty?
No.
Okay, so Complexity were going to play against LMQ, and Rivington, I assume just as filler, while his brain was thinking of the next thing to say, said of Complexity that they have all-star players. Then, yeah, Complexity have all-star players. They don't even have star players. They don't even have all players. Like, they don't have nothing of that statement is correct. Like, the best part about that, though, is they then went into the game against LMQ and got ultra fucking mega Voltron, Megatron into Galvatron, fired into an actual gun, shooting the planet that was played by Orson Welles in the Transformers movie, dumpstered like motherfuckers by LMQ, like 26 kills to 4 or something. And Xiao Wei Xiao was like 10... It was something retarded, like 14-2-7 or some shit like that. In fact, here's a side point. If you wanted fantasy points, if I could go back in time, I would pick Xiao Wei Xiao. And here's why. He's not the best player in LCS NA. But LMQ, because they're Chinese, they're like, when they start dumpstering people and they're like 16-2 kills up, other teams are like, right, let's close the game out. We just got 4 kills. Let's get an objective. They're like, you know what goes better with 4 kills? Another 4 kills. And then when they're like 20 kills up, they're like, whoa, why would we stop the game? This is exactly where I want to be right now. Time to carry this shit. And then they just go ham. That must be like the best fantasy points player ever, because they don't even close the game.
Yeah, Xiao Wei Xiao got like 62 points last week in fantasy, which is ridiculous.
Yeah.
What do you think of LMQ, CandyPanda?
They're pretty good. I mean, you could only see them in the amateur scene before, but you could even see it there. They had like... They were different than the other amateur teams. I mean, they rarely lost. And even if they lost, like... It was different losing than other teams losing. Sounds weird, but they have a more team-like approach, whereas a lot of amateur teams have this solo queue style approach where they just win lane, win game. But LMQ actually won a lot of games by outpicking team comp-wise and out-rotating the enemy.
What do you think, Monty? LMQ?
I actually think that their strategy is very weak, but that their mechanics and team fighting are very good. And that also, one of the great things about LMQ is that they rarely, if they can get a lead, then they rarely lose it. So,
how can their strategy be really bad if they rarely lose the lead?
Well, it's that's the thing, is that in League of Legends, it's generally speaking a lot easier to snowball if you already have an advantage rather than coming back from behind. And that's, I think, the true test of most teams is, can you fight your way back from a victory or into a victory from behind? So
okay, so let me just check that. It's quite easy in League of Legends to like.
I know what you're going to say.
Whatever, man. The jokes write themselves at this point. Okay.
I don't know what you want me to say. I already said our game against C9 was terrible.
Fair enough.
The admission has been made.
I'm actually, by the way, Monty, I'll set you a little challenge now. I'm throwing the gauntlet down. I'm already lining up my all-star Chinese experts who are going to come on this show and go at you, motherfucker. Because I know the stuff you say about China. Listen, I don't know enough about the game, so I can't go at you on it. But I'm going to put up, we're going to be sort of like, I'm going to put up like a gauntlet of people to just come at you and just take you on your thoughts about Chinese strategy, the positions, how they play. So I'm just warning you now, like, get ready, get prepared, do your homework. Come with your best. Listen, I'm better than you, so you better come with your A game. I'm like Don King. I'm setting up like a fight. Like, it'll be the fight of the century, ladies and gentlemen. Meanwhile, I've got this like bum guy who I've been feeding cans for like 10 years. Like, he's gonna come in like he's 17-0. Will Monte Cristo retain the belt? And you have to just Tyson knock him out in 1 minute. And I'm like, yeah.
I want to wait until the LPL really gets rolling again, because I'm very curious about how the Korean players are going to perform and the weird stuff that China's doing right now. So until we can get a good look at the scene again.
Yeah, okay. I'm just setting that out there for people, because people wonder, like, we don't cover all the reasons. Like, we're definitely going to cover China some more. Actually, and by the way, if people want to watch Chinese LPL now, last split, I only became aware of this towards the end in the playoffs, but there's actually, like, these two people who do casting of the LPL in English again. If you ever remember, like, back in the day, Papa Smithy and those guys did it, but then they stopped for a while. You couldn't get English casting as far as I knew. But actually, on this site called, like, Games in Asia, I think it is, .com, they do LPL coverage now. If you just type Games in Asia LPL, you'll find it. And they do it in English. And there's two people who do it. There's one guy's some sort of like generic German guy. No offense to Candy. And then there's like a girl who's actually really good, actually. She has really good knowledge. She has a really good voice for it. And I haven't seen any photos of her yet, so I don't know if she's beautiful or whatever. Like, that hasn't even become a factor yet, but you know, we'll see. So watch that, actually. And they just, in fact, here's a topic we can go into. They just cast a game yesterday, which was Starhorn's first game, which is the old Royal Club, who've just taken Insec in. And they didn't play against a very good team, but you got to see Insec play in their team, and you got to see Zero, and you got to see Uzi I. If you had to speculate, Monty, because we haven't talked about this on the show yet, how do you think a player like Insec can adapt to playing in China? Because you've always said they've had poor junglers in China, right?
Yeah, but it's not like Insec is a great jungler right now. I mean, he couldn't even find a Korean team, which is why he had to go to China in the first place. He also was really bad this last season, and his decision-making isn't great. And if you think about it, too, the language barrier is going to be huge. Insec does not speak Chinese, neither does Zero. So basically, everybody's going to have to communicate in English. I think it's a really awkward situation, and I don't think it's going to work.
It's not going to work.
That's what I wondered. How are they going to communicate? Like, they're not speaking English. I mean, they might learn it, but it's going to take some time.
I mean, I don't know how much you need to communicate with Insec anyway, because it seems like no matter what you tell him, he's always going to initiate way too early when his team isn't there. So maybe it won't matter.
Yeah.
I saw the game last night. He was playing Rengar. It was pretty good. But then again, the team they were playing was fucking terrible, so...
I haven't seen the game yet, so...
Yeah, and by the way, for everyone wondering, that is how you pronounce Uzi I. It's supposedly not named after the gun. It's just Uzi I. Chaos taught me that. Shout outs to my boy Chaos. You almost got on a team there, but now you're the coach. That's the curse way. You almost got on a curse, but you did follow St. Vicious' path. Actually, what do you think about that, Monty? This team that was set up with Coast, which is like... Well, it's Team Rejects, let's face it. It's Team LCS Rejects. You seen this lineup?
I did very briefly today.
Rux top lane, Santorin jungler, Golden Glue mid. Who was the support
Don't
player?
Mash Me, Sheep, and Chaos.
Yeah, Sheep, Don't Mash Me, and then Chaos is the coach. What do you think? This team, listen, just on the names, you'd think they have a good chance of getting LCS.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't really care about the amateur scene.
But enough about NA. What do you think of the...
Enough about NA. Why are we talking about Coast's roster when we haven't even talked about Loco Doco yet?
Okay,
TSM's
you want to get to that? Oh,
yes,
here's
I do.
a comment. Before we get to that, I have to say something first. I'm going to write something about this soon. But whenever people talk about professionalism, okay, professionalism does not mean you don't say things that people don't like. Professionalism means you do your job to the best of your abilities, regardless of how you feel that day, what your personal opinion is on the person you're working with. You just do your job the best you can. So I'm going to tell people some interesting information here. Because of this show, Summoning Insight, and me being the host of it, and me working for On Gamers, so that's the only connection between me, On Gamers, and then Travis, TSM now won't ever do interviews with Travis because I do this show and I am me. Right? What does Travis have to do with me? The fact that he works for the same employer. And because of that, because of Reginald says that we can't have any more interviews for Travis from LCS because of this show and us doing it.
What? When did this happen?
The other day. So this is why that's why I'm going to announce it here, because that is shitty, unprofessional behaviour. So there you go. It's getting called out. And that's something, by the way, I'll put this out there to the industry. There's actually been times in the past, I'm not going to go ham on this topic, but there have been times in the past where someone has blacklisted me personally and said, we won't do interviews with Thorin. So all I say to them is, okay, that's your prerogative. You don't have to do interviews with me. But don't make that apply to On Gamers. And so there's a lot of teams, well, there's not a lot of teams, it's only ever happened like 3 times, but the other teams have all said, okay, that's fair enough, like, we'll still let Travis have his interviews. And so if that happens, I never come out publicly and say, like, that team won't do interviews with me. But if that team decides, not only won't they do them with me, but because I just work for the same site, they now won't do them with Travis, that's fucking bullshit, and that is holding esports back, and I will call that out every time now publicly.
Wow,
so you're on notice every team. Like, I'm going to put that out there every time it happens.
Wow, so that means we can't get Loco on the show anymore.
No, that's
either.
another thing. We can't have Loco Doco on the show ever again because of your good old boy Reggie there. Oh, he's such a good guy. Oh, he seems like he's calmed down a lot now. I wonder why everyone leaves the team because of the bad attitude. That wasn't even his accent. It was like a guy who's an old guy from England talking about Reginald and watch Game Grumps or something. He's an ignorant guy. I won't have him on the show again. But no, Loco Doco can't come on the show anymore. Yeah, it's bullshit, right? And by the way, here's the key thing I'm going to make as a point now. You're now thinking, oh, so now you've got beef with Reginald. Now you don't like him. No. My opinion on Reginald has never changed for like 3 years. If Reginald messaged me now on Skype and said, listen, it's gotten out of control. We haven't talked about this thing. Like, let's figure something out. Like, maybe we can figure it out so Travis can still have his interviews. Okay, Loco can't do on your show anymore. He can't do interviews with you. I'd be like, you know what? That's professionalism. Let's work that out. We'll figure it out. You don't have to do interviews with me anymore. Just do them with Travis. There we go. We've got a setup that's fine. It all works. Loco can maybe come on once a season or something. You can vet the topics he talks about. No, we can't do any of that. Because here's another thing. I'm blacklisted, and Old Gamers is as well. But we're not blacklisted where we've been told by Reginald we are like that. We've been told through like back channels, and I can't even contact Reginald. I can't even talk to him and say, professionally, what is the status of like me doing interviews? I can't even do that. That's not professionalism. That is acting like a little kid who's using petty biases to override professionalism. Say, what's in the best interest of TSM now? What's in the best interest of this player? What's in the best interest of Loco Doco? And if in the best interests is not to go on Summoning Insight, that's absolutely fine. But it's not in their best interests to be banned from someone you would have let them do interviews with because that person is indirectly associated with someone else who's totally different. That's bullshit. That's not professionalism. Buck your fucking ideas up, son, or you're going to get wrecked on this show.
Well, not to mention that what have we done here on Summoning Insight? I mean, it's the job of this show to analyze how the teams are doing right now and provide that perspective from an insider's point of view about the scene and from an expert's point of view about the scene. And I don't think that we've said anything about TSM that is off base. We have pointed out the flaws with the team. Everybody understands that the team is underperforming right now compared to where they were last season. Like, it's not mysterious. We haven't said anything that's particularly inflammatory. So this just, I don't really get it.
Oh, and the key part, as like I said, let me just reiterate that last part again. The key part of this aspect is it doesn't matter what people's personal feelings are. As a result of this, guess what? I'm not a fan of Reginald. I never really was. But you don't know that unless I tell you it as a person in the audience now. So, for example, if I could, 6 months ago, have done a Reflections with Reginald when I was in NA last, I would have done it. And you wouldn't have known, this person watching now, that I don't like Reginald as a person. You'd have watched the interview. I would have been sympathetic to his perspective so I could tell the story and do the interview and ask him questions. I would have allowed him unlimited time to give his opinion. You notice I never cut people off in my interviews when they're answering. I give them full time. I let them say whatever they want. They can disagree with me. I always give them a chance because that's professionalism, regardless of what I think. So you can all have your opinion on what professionalism is, but that is ultimate professionalism because I'm trying to do my job to the best of my ability, regardless of my opinions, you know. And here's another thing. We mentioned this on the other episode. If someone disagrees, they can come on this show and they can wreck us. By the way, if we're so wrong and these people have all these great points and things, well, what the fuck are we going to say when they say, actually, behind the scenes, this went on that you didn't know about? And this player, we'd be destroyed. We'd look like fools.
Yeah, I totally agree. And anytime Reggie would want to come onto this show, I would welcome him. I think Reggie can be articulate. But it's like, for example, earlier today, we were talking about the C9 CLG game. I'm in a little awkward position because, as you know, I have to represent CLG and I have to be an objective analyst at the same time. But I'm not going to go ahead and tell you that, CLG, that was our best game and we didn't make any mistakes. Like, that's just not true. I say we played very badly. You asked me about Seraph. I think Seraph is underperforming, but we're working on helping him and all of this other stuff. I'm not here to you can look at it. The fans know this. I'm not going to bullshit the fans, right? So all we're saying is similar things on this show. And I guess that is perceived as negative PR by Reginald, but what would he say if he came on the show? If he disagreed with it, I think he would not be looking too good.
And the funny thing is, I even think, I'll tell you a principle that does work. Any player who comes on a show like this and articulates themselves well will actually win unanimously over me and Monty, no matter even if we were correct. When Loco Doco came on that first episode, people thought what he said was like the fucking gospel. In fact, you see people repeating that stuff about Flame now that Loco himself recanted 4 episodes later when he actually met Flame and talked to him. Not because Loco was an idiot and all that, just because if you're a player and you come on and you give your side and you're honest and you explain your reasoning why, people naturally want the pro to be right. They'll side with you. You'll win in this scenario. It's not like we don't get people on this show and just body bag them.
No,
R.I.P. Zio's pardon. Okay, but no, in general we don't.
But no, it's I don't know. I think we're very reasonable. We're happy to have people on the show as guests. We just want to ask questions and have a dialogue about the game and the scene. And we're not here to attack people or anything like that. We're here to break down the conceptions that people have and really dig into what the status of the pro scene is, what the performance of teams are, what is going on behind the scenes. And I don't know. I think it's very ridiculous.
Anyway, before I got all excited there, I got a bit flustered, I started giving analogies, started going in on stuff. We were actually having a show and there was this guy on the show who I just remembered he's in this right-hand box here. It's called CandyPanda. He loves Reginald, by the way. If he ever gets a chance to be on TSM, he's right there. He thinks he's a great man, motivational leader. Again, possible father figure. See the way I talk to man? He's Caesar. If this was Planet of the Apes, he's Caesar.
Wow.
I had to go there, whatever. You know how I do that shit.
Wow.
But again, I would allow Caesar to come on and say, "Get your hands off me, you filthy dirty ape," if he said that to me. But he probably wouldn't. Anyway, so when we were talking about the show before, what was the topic before I went on this rant? It's about TSM, right?
Well, we were going to talk about Loco Doco and the move for coaching.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah. My bad. Poker face on again. Loco Doco is now the new coach of NA. The Messiah has arrived. He will lead us all to the promised land with his Korean dedication and understanding of the rotations. Please tell me more, Monte Cristo.
I'm going to preface this by saying I really like Loco Doco. He's a friend of mine. I really enjoy hanging out with him and spending time with him.
R.I.P. Loco.
And I think he's very knowledgeable about the game. And I do think from a game knowledge perspective, he can help TSM. But my concern with Loco Doco, just as somebody who knows him and looking at his history, is that he is very young, and to be put in a coaching position in the house when he is still approximately the same age as the players, and also he is rather flighty. I think he has a hard time staying dedicated to things for an extended period of time without getting distracted. I am concerned about TSM, and I think that this is a great opportunity for him, and he has every chance to prove everybody wrong and do a fantastic bang-up job at TSM to become a real leader on the team. But I will say that in other circumstances, when Loco Doco has not been supervised by somebody who is a lot older than him, like he was on the Korean teams, when he has come over to CLG, and I know a lot about his time on CLG, and I know that it was like 50% him, 50% everybody else, because obviously the team environment was much different, much less disciplined, much shittier than on CLG than it was now. But we all know that the discipline just wasn't there at the time, and I don't think it was all his fault. And then with Quantic as well, when he and the team came over, they seemed to kind of choke and underperform in the key moment and kind of not have their shit together. And so I think that while he is, like I said, very smart about the game, and I like him a lot, I question his leadership abilities and his ability to win the respect and actually lead TSM to victory. And not only that, but I think that you're now in a mid-season team, and it would be hard for anybody at all ever to come and turn this team around by the time that Worlds happens, because you're basically trying to, in the middle of the action, when this team already has a set, plan and a certain way they play, to change everything about that team and still get enough practice and preparation for each week of the LCS is extremely difficult to do. And I've talked about this before too, but when I came in and CLG was, really not a very good team, it took a long time to work through the comm issues, and it took really an off season too. It was something that proved relatively difficult for me to do. And I do think that when Locodoco is in the house, he's got a big advantage, because I was obviously doing it remotely, and I think it's easier to affect that change inside the team house environment, obviously. But even then, it took a while, and it took an off season where we could actually kind of like dial it back to the fundamentals and then like really take it apart and then build it back together. It's hard to like dismantle the engine in the middle of a race, No,
here's the thing as well. Like you said, we love Locodoco. He's one of our favorite guests and people in real life in esports. Like, he's actually a really funny guy, and not more than that.
And he's smart.
He's can't. That's smart. The thing I'm going to say. You can't just put him as like he's not. He's not like he's just an idiot and he's funny. No, he's actually really. That's why we have him on the show. When we have him on the show, the reason why he looks like he's the Messiah is because I purposely try to steer him to the stuff that I know he won't have any bias on, and he'll give you a really interesting opinion, like about Deft or Hart or some of these players here. I steer him away from the topics where I know he might be biased against that player, or maybe this player fucked him over here, and he might not want to talk about that. If you put him in the right area, he's one of the smartest minds in the West, because he knows the Korean scene in a way that none of the other guys do. They don't have that access. They aren't actually Koreans, but with a Westerner's culture and mind and mentality. So what's funny is TSM, in a strange way, is the perfect team if he wants to become the best coach in the world. Because what's funny is when Monty joined CLG, if he'd have joined this CLG now, and then he starts improving them, everyone could say, yeah, but how much do we really know about what Monty did there? They already had Link, who was really good, and the bot lane was the best, and they had a good European jungler. It's because he joined the bad CLG and then gradually improved them, then added better pieces, and then suddenly they can do all the things they wanted to do. That's what gave him his props as like a good coach. Well, the funny thing is, I remember talking to Loco about this topic, and I initially actually thought TSM wouldn't be that good a team for him to join, because of the fact that before the season, it looked like, well, they were already the second best team, dude, and they just added a better jungler, so maybe they're going to be even better now. So how will people know what effect you had on the team? If they finish top 2 again, they'll say it's just because their team was as good. Now, their team isn't even in most people's top 3 or top 4. So now you've got a chance. If CSM finishes top 3 this season, I would almost guarantee Loco must have done a really good coaching job. So I'll put that out there as a statement, okay? But again, I think for a brand new coach, I don't think he can know yet how hard it's going to be. He might think you can just tell someone what to do and they'll do it. That doesn't work like that, man. Right?
It doesn't, and that's where the age really comes in. And I you guys know that I reference this a lot, but that kind of emotional maturity commands a certain amount of respect from the players, and you have to know how each player's personality interacts with the other one, and it's never so easy as just to tell somebody what to do. Now, I will say that Loco has had a lot of experience with Korean coaches who are older and who have been doing this for years. He worked with Reach and everything like that, so he's had some good role models, and we don't know how he's going to do. I just knowing him, I am skeptical that he will be able to adequately fill that role.
What do you think of TSM at the moment as a team, Candy? Are they up there for you with the other teams? It sounded like they weren't when you were describing before. Like you had Dig, you had CLG, you had LMQ, you had C9. Are they in that group?
Yeah, like they are not.
Come on,
good
man,
right
they're
now.
not in that group, right?
No, they're not.
No.
I think they, like, I don't know what it is with them, but they're just straight up worse than last season. I mean, of course, the other team stepped up, but they stepped down as well.
When you
I
heard
mean,
amazing,
I think Leap right now is like a huge downgrade to X Special. He's just not performing as well.
when
Well,
you,
their shot calling has gone down significantly as well.
Yeah.
when you
the
heard
lanes.
amazing,
And their,
when
and
you
their,
go in
picks,
there-
their picks and bans. I mean, we've talked about this. Their picks and bans are a total train wreck.
when you heard
As
amazing
well as
was
the
going
lanes.
to NA, and everyone made it. They thought it was. You remember the Bjergsen thing when Bjergsen went there, and everyone said immediately, "Oh, he's
Yeah.
going to be amazing. He's going to be the best mid laner in the West. He's going to be," and he was really good, and they got really much better. Everyone did the same thing with amazing, right? They were saying he's going to be an upgrade of the odd one. He'll be amazing. He'll be really good. Mechanical plays. What have you thought of him so far?
He's just not making any presence in the game. Like, you could barely notice him. Sometimes he gets outbunned, sure, but even if he gets Lee Sin or something, he's not making anything happen. But that might not be even his fault only. His team might not give him the information he needs. The wards, like where the wards are, or whatever. Just be communicating, like, what plays you can make. I think overall as a team, they're just not communicating well enough. And then on lane, like, before, TSM's bot lane was so strong, and right now they're just not as good.
Did you actually think like everyone else when they were going there though? Like, oh, that he's going to be an upgrade. He's going to be way better. He's going to be
Yeah.
as good as he was in Europe or better.
Yeah, like when I saw the roster changes, I was like, amazing over Odd One, pretty good. And then Gleep over X Special should be better as well, because X Special, he plays so long, he should have like still the old ways of like the old thinking. And if someone new comes in, some fresh blood, then he's gonna bring some fresh air to the team as well. But it was like the complete opposite. Like they just seem disconnected right now.
Let me think. Is there anything
And
more on NA?
Yeah, I also think that Bjergsen's right now, he's still stuck with the same champions he had when he first joined NA.
Oh,
He's
this
still
is
playing
something.
Nidalee and LeBlanc.
Here's something
He's
to
not
talk
even-
about.
and
Bjergsen. What do you think? Okay, here's the timetable for what I remember of what happened to Bjergsen. The beginning of the season, he was fucking awesome. By the way, mid was a lot weaker in NA than at the time, but he was fucking awesome. He was hard carrying the first few weeks. Then there was that period where he had to go back to Europe and get his visa situation sorted or something, or his passport or something. And while he was away, they had Reginald fill in. Then he came back. He wasn't much worse, but he was a bit worse. TSM dropped off a little bit. They lost the first spot. Then they lost in the playoffs in the final. He didn't do that great in the semi-final. He did terrible in the final. And since then, it seems like he never got back to the original level he was at before. Is this just champion pool stuff, Monty?
Bjergsen?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think it is champion pool stuff. I think that Odd One was just had. I mean, Odd One didn't have a lot of presence, but I think that even he had more presence than Amazing right now. And also, I think that the bottom lane underperforming has allowed the junglers on the other teams to put more pressure on Bjergsen in the mid lane, because there's virtually no reason to like gank Glebe and Wild Turtle right now, because you're not really concerned about them winning lane. So in that circumstance, you're going to feel much more able to put the pressure on Bjergsen instead. So,
In terms of his champion pool, though, one of the areas where I noticed that it was strange is that I thought, because listen, dude, the guy has really good mechanics and he's such a good solo queue player and he can play almost anything in solo queue, it seems. That's where I thought it would be a huge strength of his, right? Because I thought to myself, like, oh, I get it. This guy's just going to be able to do like what Froggen does or something like that. He'll just pick up any champion he needs for whatever the team needs and he'll start wrecking with it, okay? But the first time I really noticed that, like, he couldn't just do that was when the playoffs came, because you remember the playoffs in NA came just after everyone picked up Twisted Fate again. After Dade had that game, after, was it Pawn had a game on it as well? Everyone had just picked up Twisted Fate again, and Link played it against him. But Bjergsen never picked Twisted Fate. I think he has still never picked Twisted Fate in LCS NA. I don't think he's picked it at all this season, though. It's now in the meta. So it seems like he does have some champions he can't play or he won't play. And in fact, this season he's gone to the more supportive style. He's not even playing so many of the hard carry champion. What do you think in this sense?
I mean, I'm not sure exactly what his champion pool is or what the team planning is, so I can't really say. But I do think that TF is definitely a good champion right now if you want to pick it up. But every player has certain champions that are meta that they can't or won't play, and maybe this is one of Bjergsen's. I do think that Bjergsen is a very skilled player, and that currently he's suffering from perhaps a little bit of a personal slump, but also just the team itself not really functioning well as a cohesive unit. And two veterans from that team were removed, and it's hard to say how those kind of old hands will removing those old hands will affect a team. But it seems like the replacements weren't at the same strength of not only a bit. Well, I think Amazing is still. I mean, it's definitely a mechanical upgrade on Odd One, but in terms of shot calling, something seems to be pretty wrong right now. And the team is just very young, right? Especially in Odd One, we're older than the counterparts that they replaced, and perhaps that had an effect too on the kind of emotional stability of the team.
Candy, you remember the summer split of LCS last year when Bjergsen, the spring split, he was like his coming out party. We got to see wow, this guy's really good, but his team was really bad. Then he had that period in the summer where NiP got really good when they had Extinct and Maluno, and we were like, wow, maybe they're going to finish top 3, and he was carrying. He was like the hard carry of the team, and everyone's like, wow, this guy's amazing. At the time, the hype was like, you know what, Bjergsen is as good as Froggen, he's as good as Alexic, he's good as expected. People put him up there with the gods of the EU mid lanes, right? And he went to NA, and everyone said he's just going to get better and better. Now, as it stands right now, Bjergsen as he is right now in NA, Froggen as he is in EU, is there even a debate as to who's better?
Right now, I think Bjergsen is a lot worse. I think he just stagnated in NA, whereas in EU he just improved.
Was he actually at that level when he was in EU, do you think?
Yeah, I think he beat Picker or Froggen regularly in lane when he was playing them in Summer Split. He just kept improving, but right now it feels like he's just happy where he is in NA and he's not really improving.
There's a perception...
Even though his team is holding him back, of course, as well.
There's a perception, Candy, amongst Europeans that people who go to NA go there for the paycheck. They don't go thinking, I'm going to join a team and we're going to win LCS NA and we're going to go to Worlds and win Worlds. They go there thinking, yeah, I can get a better team than I have in EU and I get more money and more fans, so that's why I'm going.
I don't think so. I think it's not that. It's more like it's just easier to find a top 3 team in NA. It's not true anymore. I would say it was true last split, spring split. But right now it's not true anymore. There's so many good teams right now in NA that it's bullshit right now. But last year it was definitely true where there were only Cloud9, TSM, and CLG. If you could get to one of those teams, you would be top 3 right from the get-go. So,
sure.
And it wasn't hard to get on there. I mean, all these teams had 1 or 2 weaknesses, like Reginald, or you know what I'm saying.
Yep.
You could replace someone there pretty easily. But in you had those players who, I mean, no one needed Bjergsen, quite frankly. They had Xpicket, they had Froggen, they had Alexic.
It's the same with the Forgiven problem, right? They've already got a player, if not as good, then almost as good. So, why replace him,
Yeah. Well, in NA, the top 3 teams, they needed better players in those positions.
Because the thing is,
yeah.
I don't want to make this sound like a diss, because obviously Seraph could turn things around and he could improve. And as I said, they don't need a carry top laner. In fact, very few people do in the meta now. It's not needed. You saw from the recent championships, you don't need the carry top laner to win. But I want to get Candy's take on this, because after seeing how CLG have played this season, even without their top doing amazingly, and seeing the other teams in LCS NA and some of the weaknesses, I can say right now, I'm pretty sure if Zoro Zero had joined CLG, they would be the best team by far in NA this season. What do you think, Candy? Am I going too far?
Maybe they would be, but as I understand it, Seraph is a long-term investment because they want him to learn English. They want him to, communicate with the team.
Okay, I'm not dissing Seraph. I'm just saying as a hypothetical. If that in an alternate universe where Zoro Zero accepts that offer, how do you think it goes?
Yeah, sure. I think that from the start maybe he would be better, but I think Seraph has more potential since Zoro Zero is where he's at since a year already. He's not getting better or worse.
Well, Zoro also has, he hasn't played at the top level in a while because he was kind of stuck down in the amateur scene for a little bit. So I think it's difficult to say. But
I mean, he's played against all those LCS teams in practice and wrecked them.
Zoro's a great player. He was. I mean, it's obvious that he was the first player that we approached. So I tend to agree with you, but we'll never know.
Sounds like Candy didn't agree with me where I said he wrecked them in practice there.
Yeah, that's just bullshit, Curse
bullshit.
says they're in practice, and then they go 2-5 in LCS.
So you're telling me Nip weren't a winning team in practice against SK?
Yeah, we never scrimmed them, actually.
Okay.
Really?
But listen, other people will freely admit it. They say Nip was really good in practices.
Yeah, but it doesn't mean anything.
I mean, it means something. You can't be the worst team in the whole world and win every practice. That won't happen. So it means something. Maybe it doesn't mean exact, like they're the best, but it means that they're not terrible, right?
Well, Fnatic is notorious for just losing everything in scrims. And then they just win everything anyway. Well, not anymore, but that's what happened last year. Everyone, you just roll over them in scrims because they're trying out so much stuff. But then when it comes to the real games, they trot out so much. They can pull out something crazy while you just played the same try-hard setups every game and they know exactly what you're going to do. So I don't think beating everyone in scrims is a good indicator of skill.
Let me think. I had one more topic before we go.
Unless you're doing it while you try out new stuff. Then you can say you're good. But if you just first pick the most OP champion every time and you try to outbund them as best as you can, then of course you're going to win scrims since the other team is not going to do it, but that doesn't mean you're better.
Oh, another topic I had before, because what we'll do is after we've done these topics, we'll do another ad break, then Candy can go because he's ill. It's like fucking 4 a.m. in Europe or something, and then me and Monchi will do some Korean shit, and then we'll close up. So another topic I had for NA was this news that Helios is joining EG as their jungler.
Yeah. Didn't we see him on the Player Summit?
Let's just go ahead and say this. When everyone said, hey, look, that's Helios in a grey shirt, I was like, that's the back of a guy's head who has black hair. I've seen Helios in life 3 times, and I didn't know who that was.
I have seen Helios every week for the last year and a half. I can't tell that's Helios. Okay?
Right.
I've seen him more.
He looked like him, though. He looked like him. It could be him.
Okay. Could be anybody.
Maybe that's the news. That's the new leak. If you want to get the story first, just take the back of a picture of someone's head and be like, look, Froggen signing with CLG. It's blonde hair and it's short guy with a t-shirt.
Jesus.
Shout LeBlanc at him. See if he flinches. Anyway, no. So what do you think of that topic, though? Helios joins EG as their jungler.
I don't know. It totally depends on his ability to communicate with the team. Obviously, we've been struggling with that as well with Seraph. It's improving, but it's still difficult. And yeah, the Helios issue is it really just honestly depends on how fast he can learn English. His English is okay as it is, but it's a gamble. I mean, when you get a player that isn't fluent in that language, it's always somewhat of a gamble. And especially with a jungler who needs to be very vocal early in the game, that may cause issues. I think Helios is mechanically strong. He's always had a limited champion pool. He's a great veteran, though, and that's the advantage, and that I think he improved Sword's shot calling in the short time that he was on there. So we'll see.
Okay, I'll be bold.
I mean,
here.
just individually, he's an upgrade from Snoopy. So
yeah, but by how much?
Mechanically, significantly.
Okay, you say significantly. Helios is not Insec. He is not Cacao. He is not Dandy. He's better than Snoopy mechanically, sure, but he's not like a god tier Korean.
Snoopy is not Diamond Prox, so you can make the comparison both sides, and then that way he would still be better, right?
No, I agree, but I'm just saying it's not like. Here's the key thing. Actually, here's why I'm going to say this. I don't think this move does much for EG. At the moment, all this move could do for EG is maybe they can get to the level of a TSM and Curse. Maybe they can get there. That's a big maybe, by the way. That involves everything going right. They still won't be top 3, I think, even if Helios works out completely. And here's why. Helios isn't, like I just said, this beast mechanical player from Korea. So he's a player who's more of a supportive jungler, good at shot calling maybe, good at knowing tactics maybe. He's playing in a team where he's going to have to speak English. And sorry, shut the fuck up, everyone who says he has really good English. Don't say people have really good English until they've proven it. That's a fucking retarded thing to say. That's like saying I have really good Chinese, but no one's ever heard me say it. Why would you keep repeating that, you know? You haven't heard it either, so how do you know? So what's retarded about that is he's exactly the sort of jungler who shouldn't go to a team if he doesn't have perfect communication. And here's the thing. You know when I've said that I think Insect could work in Starhorn and actually be good? That's because Insect's style of jungling is like the no communication jungler who's a beast mechanical player who he makes the play and you just follow in on what he does. He comes to your lane. Oh, I guess it's gank time, right? Let's go then. He's not trying to do the super comms and play the supportive style and do this and when shall I come to your lane? And that's why I think the Helios move's really a big gamble. Listen, it's a good gamble. Like, they weren't going to get any more out of what they had to Snoopy. They'd hit the ceiling there. They knew what they were going to get. So it's a good gamble, but it's not going to blow the roof off anything. Okay? It's not going to change everything totally and make it amazing and all that great stuff. In fact, I'll put this point out there. I think I might have mentioned this on a week before. When Loco Doco mentioned all that stuff about Flame and how selfish Flame is and Ambition's selfish and they demand the jungler do this, that and the other, the reason why he mentioned all that is because he talks to Helios and he talks to Lustboy. And Helios and Lustboy apparently told him that stuff. Well, remember on that next episode we had Loco on, episode 10, Loco Doco came on, said he now understands Flame's perspective. You know, some of that stuff might have been biased because he heard it from them. So actually, it's very easy for someone who does badly in a team and gets kicked out to say, well, you know what? They were stopping me doing what I wanted to do. They were holding me back. He used to tell me to do this and I can't do that and I was failing. Well, here's the thing. If that was true, then Helios could have gone to another team and he could have proven it. You know when N-Rated got kicked out of Fnatic and then he had to go through all these troubles and he came to SK and he's proven it now. If anything, he's better than he might have been in Fnatic and his team's doing way better. And guess what? Now no one questions any of those things. No one ever mentions that motivation thing. Like, oh, I guess that N-Rated doesn't have motivation to do it. No one says that now because everyone sees that he's really good. Helios could have done this. He went to Najin Sword. Well, it's fucking Najin Sword. We don't even need to say what happened there. Beyond that, who was falling over themselves to pick up Helios? No one. He got picked up by a team who's one of the worst in NA to replace a guy who's famous for being really good 2 years ago. That's not even a diss on anyone. That is to state facts. Like, come on, get real. And the other thing is as well, who the fuck are the shot callers in that EG team? Everyone claimed it was Snoopy and Crepo, okay? Let's say it was. Well, now Snoopy's not going to be doing shot calling. You think a guy who barely speaks English is going to be doing shot calling? No. So who is the shot caller? Altec? No. Pobelter? No. Inox? No. So is Crepo the solo shot caller now? The whole thing's a fucking mess. We don't know what's going on. This is not a move that you should get excited about. Let's wait and see on this one. I don't think there's any reason to be excited. Whoa, what happened with my thing there? I got crazy. Any final thoughts on that?
No, I agree with you. It definitely is a wait and see moment. And like I said, whenever you get a player in who doesn't have the best communication skills with the rest of the team, it always is a wait and see moment. Well, we took a gamble this season too. And that's just how it is. And so you just have to wait and see how it works out. Now, I do think that Helios's veteran status is a bonus because he's got so much experience in the booth that it's ridiculous. So that's good. And I think that if his English is adequate, I think he can give a lot to EG, but it is about that in-game. In fact, I think that Helios his biggest effect may actually be outside of game. You know what I mean? Like giving some knowledge about
I'm sure for people like Altec, etc., he could probably help them out. You know, like practice, work ethic. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure. I think actually that's probably going to be his biggest value.
It will be improvement, but it won't make them top 3, as you said.
No.
But any step in that direction is good. I mean, now they just have to get Inars to play the meta champions and not Kha'Zix or Lee Sin, and then they're on a pretty good way, I guess.
I mean, that should have happened a long time ago.
Candy, do you remember the rumors when, before Alliance was formed, when they were just practicing and no one even knew if they would be Alliance? There was actually, behind the scenes, people didn't know. Would EG stay in Europe with the Crepo and Snoopy lineup? Would they go to NA with the whole lineup? Would Alliance go to NA? Would Froggen and them make their team for maybe NIP or a different Lemon Dogs, a different organization? No one knew where they'd end up, okay. I remember there was a rumor that said SK might take Wicked and Snoopy. I think, wasn't that who they were going to take? Am I wrong?
So when Alliance tried out Kevin and Wicked and all those top laners, we wanted to try out Wicked, but not Snoopy.
There was never a possibility for Snoopy to come?
No.
Okay. Let me think. What was I going to say there? Fuck, I lost. Oh, but here's the last topic I thought that's good for all of us here, 'cause it ties into this. Someone's made the point recently. Okay, Koreans are going to Brazil. Koreans are going to NA. Koreans are going to China. Even fucking China. Why aren't any Koreans going to EU, CandyPanda?
EU. Isn't it because of the visas?
Is it really though?
Is it? I don't know.
Dude, there's people in NA who don't have visas, who just go back every 89 days. Ooh, have I let another secret out? Better sue me and then blacklist me. And then I'll report you to the IRS, fuckface, or whoever, the Homeland Security or something. So yeah, let's play that game. Let's play chicken, motherfucker, with visas. Anyway, continue, Candy. I think I interrupted you there.
Well, that's a good question. I don't know. They should. I think Golovkin teams could benefit from Koreans. Even though there's probably not so much need right now because there's so much talent in the challenger scene. If one of your players is bad, then you can just take the next one from NIP or Cloud9 or HUK or whatever amateur team is there. There's so much talent right now that you don't have to import like tier 2, 3 Koreans from Korea.
If they did, so for example, Super Hot Crew tomorrow decide, you know what? Let's think of a good player who wouldn't be on a team right now. Okay, let's say Nofei decides he's going to come back to playing, but he can't get a team. So yeah. Super Hot Crew's going to pick up Nofei. He speaks good English. Like, yeah, okay, let's see. So he speaks some English, and he joins that team. He's obviously an upgrade over Impaler, right? Just as a player, individually, he's a better player. Nofei's a really
honestly,
good
honestly, it depends on his English.
Yeah, okay.
That's all it depends on. If it's really good, then maybe.
But here's the point I'm going to make.
I could see it.
Most people would probably hear that and think that's crazy. Why even risk that? Why not get another European jungler? Why not even just keep Impaler and try and get better? But what's funny is that would sound crazy going to Europe, and yet all these moves are done in NA, and the initial reaction is, wow, great. Oh, I wish McNoon had joined CLG as the top laner. Hey, I wish... who else was the ones who were available? I wish Insec would join CLG as their jungler. Like, people automatically think these moves are going to be good. Why? Here's the question for you NA fans. Why do you automatically think the NA team would improve with the guy who can't speak any English coming over who's a Korean, but you wouldn't think the EU team would improve? Thoughts, Monty?
I don't know why anybody would think that.
When people said all that stuff like CLG McNoon, what were your thoughts?
I like Mokdin very much, but I didn't think he was the right fit for CLG.
Like the NA top lane, like the top lane talent is pretty limited in NA.
Yeah.
It's actually so hard to find a good top laner.
And it's even harder now because in the current meta, you have to have a lot of professional experience to even understand what the hell is going on in top lane because the current lane swap meta is really, really complicated. And it's so far away from solo queue that if we were to, like, if any team were to pick up a solo queue top laner, like, the amount of teaching you would have to do is ridiculous.
And it's also evolving so fast.
Yeah, it is. It's changing every week.
2 weeks ago, you still pushed and double jungled. Now it's like you freeze the lane. It's just evolving. You have to adapt so much.
Yeah.
And if, like, the best top laners in NA are, like, Balls and Dyrus and stuff, and the next best are people like Quas and Vestrise, then like the NA talent is really limited.
It's true.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we've exhausted the topics in NA and EU. What we'll do now is I'll do another 60-second break, then we'll drop Candy, and then we'll come back and me and Monty will finish up with Korean topics. So, do you have any final words for everyone, CandyPanda? Aside from, yeah, of course, and everyone's equal in my team.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
Oh, shit, yeah, sure. Okay.
Well, I don't know. It was nice to be on the show. I think I gave some good answers, but...
Thanks, Candy.
Yeah, no problem.
You're the best. Good luck with SK, man. You guys are doing well.
Yeah, thanks. Good luck with SG.
Thanks, I need it.
Yeah, exactly. Let me 1 second, I just have to figure out. I'm bringing you up the dashboard. I have to click this button now. Wait a sec. We're still live, so don't say any crazy shit. Not that these professionals on this show need me to say that. Right, it should be showing a commercial now. Okay, just drop the call, Candy. Just, like, click the thing. Thanks, mate.
Yeah. See ya. Bye-bye. Have fun.
Okay, so the Korean topics we need to talk about. OGN Masters final, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, Ozone and Blue are really good. Samsung Blue is exceptionally good at doing the lane swaps right now. It's pretty crazy. Like, they just fantastic team. Both of the Samsung teams are really like on top of the meta. SK Telecom K, I think that they're still good at team fighting and late game decision making, probably better than the Samsung teams, but they found themselves falling behind so far early on that it was a problem.
Didn't this final... Listen, Blue and Ozone are probably the two best teams in Korea right now. But even so, didn't this final kind of like kill some of the hype of when we saw SK at All-Stars and we were like, maybe they've turned it around. This kind of made it like, they're good. Listen, they had one game that was good, but come on, man. They're not an elite team, right?
Well, I think they're probably still like top 6 in Korea, but I don't know if it's really hard to tell because when we thought that, coming in that Samsung would win, I said 3-1. I thought K may be able to take one game, but it was a 3-0. So pretty convincing victory. But I think the Samsung teams are the top 2 teams right now. So until we get a larger sample size to compare them to, like I said, I think that they did play really well in the mid and late game, despite the fact that they had a deficit, and they nearly made a comeback in both games against Blue and Ozone, but they were too far behind early. However, one of the marks of a good team right now is your ability to play very well in a lane swap, and Impact found himself getting pretty far behind. So it's hard to say. I think they're still like top 6, but I don't know.
I have a key question to ask you that's going to both tie into the SK Telecom question and to the question about Samsung Blue being the best team now. It goes like this. Because since we've only got 10 minutes left, let's just argue about this topic. Because I think you might disagree with me, and it's a topic I want someone to argue with me and actually give me real points to debate with, okay? And it goes like this. Everyone says whoever the best team is in Korea, they just grant nearly every player on it, if they're a dominant team, like they're the best at their role, or they're one of the top 2 or 3 at their position, okay? You remember this with SK Telecom. Everyone said Impact's maybe better than Flame, Bengi's the best by far, jungler, Faker's the god at mid, Pumandu's amazing, Piglet by far the best AD carry. And some of those they were willing to argue with, okay? Like maybe you could argue with someone about the Impact one. Maybe someone would give you Flame or something like that. Bengi, no one would let you debate. It had to be Bengi was only the best jungler in the world. Piglet, he had to be the best. If you even... Dude, I once put... I think Imp... There's a debate that you could make whether Imp's as good as Piglet. People downvoted it and said it was just... I didn't know about the game. Pumandu, maybe they'd give you that as well. They might say, oh, maybe Matter's as good, There's a couple they gave you some wiggle room on. But this trend has now carried over to Samsung Blue. The same Samsung Blue no one predicted would beat Ozone, and then we all predicted would lose to Shield, is now full of all the best teams in Korea, every position. What do you think?
It's definitely not true. I think that Heart is worse than Acorn, generally speaking. I think Deft has a very different playstyle. I do think Deft is like pretty.
Wait a minute,
top
Heart is worse than Mata, you mean?
Mata, yeah.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah. I think that Deft is pretty far up there in terms of his role right now. I think Spirit is really good. And I think that Dade is finally performing again. Acorn is... Now, he had the top KDA in like 2 tournaments, so that's pretty impressive right there. But a lot of Acorn's success comes from the fact that Samsung Blue has so correctly as a team identified how to play the lane swap meta, and it's been their decision-making that have really carried it through. So he's a beneficiary of that. He's smart in this meta, whether he's going to be a top laner, because if we dial it back and look at the 1v1 top days, he definitely was not a standout top lane player. So I think he's improved, but I do think that it's much more about their shot calling right now as to why Acorn looks so good.
Fuck, Monty, we were supposed to disagree. Like, that's basically what I think. Because basically, I thought you were going to agree with some of the points. Like, you would say Acorn was really good. But the thing is, okay, I was thinking about this debate the other day. The reason why it's really hard for me to give everyone top status like that, and by the way, just like SK Telecom when they were on top, their team is close to it. Like, hey, listen, maybe they're all top 4 at their positions, and a couple are the best or the second best, okay? But the reason why I can't give them all top 4, top 2, or top 3 status is because, first of all, why would 5 players all improve in skill and become way better at an identical period of time? That doesn't make sense.
No. And the other thing about Acorn too is that in this meta, the teleport meta, you are dependent a lot on the communication and shot calling of your team to decide when to use teleport. And yeah, his teleports are good, but the teleport is always like a team effort, right? That's not necessarily him being like a great. I think that this is just the current meta is playing into the team's strengths and that they've really figured things out. And I think that Dade works really well on Samsung Blue as well. I think that really the most impressive story about Samsung Blue is how good Spirit has gotten from a substitute player.
Yeah. No,
like that's crazy.
What's funny is that's a good way to break it down. It goes like this. Here's the Samsung Blue story, as far as I can tell from looking at the game and listening to people who are educated opinions. It goes like this. Deft has always been really good. We've always talked about him as like underrated. Maybe he should have joined Frost or something. Always a good player. But again, look at his style of play. He's not the pig. He's not the imp.
Nope.
Uzi Eye, Name, hard carry. I go 1v9. I carry the whole game.
No,
he's like the best of the supportive, super solid, almost like a reckless style.
He's a team fighting AD.
Yeah.
He plays his role with the team. His positioning is like his team fighting positioning is probably the best in the world for an AD carry.
So the point there is he might not have improved that much. He was always really good, but he didn't have the team to make him good. Okay. Now Dade, that's obvious. He was really bad for a while. Now he's gotten really good again. There's a player who is really one of the best in his role and has improved recently. So these two players make sense. Spirit used to be a sub not that long ago, so he clearly has improved or he's figured out some performance issue. That makes sense. Acorn, I'll give you that as well. Acorn was just decent and now he's improved. So there's two who have improved. Hart probably has improved because people said he was old and maybe he should retire. So he's got improved a lot. So there's maybe like 2.5 players who've improved. One player was always really good, dropped off and became really good again. Deft has stayed just as good. That makes sense when you add it up like that. They're not winning just by being the best players. That's the most ignorant, low-level way to analyze the game, is to think the team that wins has all the best players. Well, in that case, there must be no strategy involved, no team play involved, just have the best players. The reason why I bring that point up is because you have to do the same thing when you talk about SK Telecom. I don't buy the story that SK Telecom, all 5 simultaneously woke up one day and just were worse. And now we're worse and now we're losing. No, what probably happened was the same team who could adapt to everything and play every style now can't play every style. They now can't adapt to everything. A couple of players have dropped off. Bengi looks worse. Let me think who else you'd say. Impact's worse for sure.
Mandu.
Mandu's never fully got back. Listen, sometimes he did. He was one of the main reasons in Game 3 they looked good there. But he's never fully gotten back to that level where he could play everything. He was the god support player, So you can see it makes sense when you break the game down this way. Because the reason why I want to bring this up is when we do these analogies of who is the best at a position, there really are debates to be made because what you're judging is your own criteria. That's what you're talking about in the debate. It's not who's better. So when I used to have that debate about could Imp be better than Piglet, I wasn't saying Piglet isn't amazing. Piglet was the most effective AD carry in the world. Imp is the hard carry AD carry. So if I personally judge my players on their hard carry potential or how they lead the team in terms of their play, I would have gone with Imp. Now, if I wanted a player to fit into Faker's team, I'd pick Piglet, obviously. The reason why
Piglet and Imp are pretty similar, to be fair, but Imp is even more so than Piglet.
Sure, because the reason I want to make this point is to end on my favorite, the flame topic. Now people are going to say, okay, Acorn. People are going to say Save is shit because he lost that one series to Acorn, okay? They're going to say Acorn's the best top laner in the world. Here's the thing, I'll ask you this question, okay? When people talk about Flame and his problems and he wants to carry, think about this, okay? Samsung Blue, Acorn, take both top laners out of the world. Acorn and Flame aren't in this discussion. We're just looking at the other positions. So Spirit, most people are going to say he's a top 3 jungler in Korea right now. Dade, most people are going to say he's top 2, if not the best mid laner in Korea right now. Hart, most people are going to say he's top 3. I think most people would say he's top 2. I'd say he's top 3, okay? Let's be reasonable. Don't go too crazy. Top 3.
Okay.
Deft, most people will say is the best, if not top 2. Now, every other player on Acorn's team is top 3 at his position, by everyone else's standard. So what are the odds? Acorn also is the absolute best. Again, they've got the best players again. Now let's look at Blaze, the team everyone criticises because they say Flame tries to carry too much. So, Daydream, I wouldn't have him top 3 jungler right now.
Nope.
Ambition, who the fuck would have Ambition top 4 mid now?
No.
Lost Boy, probably wouldn't be top 3 support.
Maybe top 4.
Okay, he's around there. Emperor, here's the hard one. Emperor definitely wouldn't be top 2 AD carry. Maybe he could be 3rd. Maybe he could.
Yeah.
Okay. So out of those 4 players, we've got 2 players who might be the 3rd best or 4th best player at their position. And then we got Flame. Now, who do we think should be the star of this team? Who's it going to be harder to carry the whole game from top lane? Acorn or Flame? It's not even a discussion when you do it like that. It's ridiculous. Flame would have to play twice as good to look as good as Acorn. Not only that, why do you think they dive Flame all the time? They know what I've just described there. There's no one else who's going to carry the game. If you shot Flame and Shy down super hard, here's the key point, okay? They don't get shot down against the bad teams. They win against the bad teams, get into the round of 8 in the semis, then they lose to the elite teams. The elite teams have better bot lanes, better mid lane, better jungler, and then maybe the top lane, Shy and Flame, can compete. But you just shut down Shy and Flame and the game's over. You'll win the rest of your lanes. So when you break the game down like this, it's not even a surprise anymore. It makes sense. I mean, is there any of these you think I'm way off on?
No. I think that you have a good indication of like where things are right now.
Because here's one last topic I want to end on. The rumor that is fucking baking my noodle that the CJ coaches are going to put Flame top lane on Frost, Shy support, Mad Life support on Blaze, and Apple top laner on Blaze.
No, I don't think that. I think that's bullshit.
Sounds
I've heard nothing to verify this.
I mean, it's a crazy rumor. Because here's the thing about that, is that you really could make one really good team out of the 2 teams. Now, I posted this earlier. Either you can try the experimental Flame mid one, but let's say you don't do that, okay? Let's say you just make this team Flame top, Daydream jungle, Coco mid, Mad Life support, Emperor AD carry. It's the team they actually used in the Masters match against Najin mixed team. Wouldn't that team be better than either Blaze or Frost now? Potentially, we can't actually know, but come on.
I don't know. I think the Swift and Coco synergy is important. But other than that, yeah, I do think that sounds like a pretty good team. I think that putting Mad Life and Emperor together would be pretty good. I think there is credence to the rumor that Gunza will be joining one of the teams, whether Mad Life goes to Blaze or Gunza goes to Blaze. Because, yeah, I think Lustboy may be retiring. I'm not sure on that one, but possibly.
The thing is, just on the logic, that what you just said there makes more sense. If Lustboy's retiring and they are moving Mad Life to Blaze, then that's when it makes sense that Gunza goes to Frost. Because again, what would you even be losing with Frost when you're just taking a star out? It's like worth a try, you know. It's not a crazy move.
No, it's not.
And so the thing is, I mean, we're going to wrap up in a sec. The thing with that move, though, is even if we just kept Blaze as they are now, we just move Mad Life to support and we don't get rid of Ambition, I think even that's a good move, because that gives Emperor... Listen, the whole fucking time in Mad Life's career, we've always been like, imagine if he got a really good AD carry to play. It's never happened. He had Hermes, he had Woong, he had... who the fuck, Space now. These weren't really good players. Meanwhile, Lustboy's always been good, but he's the Patoy status, okay? If everyone calls you underrated, then you're not actually underrated. You're now sort of overrated, but for being underrated. It's a bad scenario. Lustboy's always been like that, you know. He's never been the best, but he's always the guy where you could say, maybe he's the 3rd best, maybe he's the 2nd best, but he could never be the best, okay? So he was always good. Maybe now you do have a lane that can win. Maybe now the bot lane can move up to being closer to the Samsung bot lanes. What do you think?
Possibly, yeah. I do think that it's interesting that CJ hasn't been able to attract like a top tier AD carry, and that I think that CJ traditionally has been far too sentimental about their rosters and haven't made necessary changes quickly enough.
Because, I mean, that's one of the interesting things. It's just a final topic. Whenever people talk about, oh, we can't catch up to Koreans, they've got this infrastructure, you see, of recruiting players, training players, you know, they have everyone break everything down and tell them exactly how to play because they're all robots. Look at the fucking CJ organization. This is one of the richest teams in the history of esports in Korea. They inherited 2 of the best teams in the history of League of Legends, Blaze, Frost. Since they've joined CJ, those teams have actually... Okay, let me think what the order was. Okay, Frost made the... Blaze made the final. Since then, both teams have gotten worse and now gradually gotten a bit better. They've never been on the top again. What's weird as well is, if the coaching was so awesome, they would have fixed things by now. They would have recruited a good player. They would have kicked the right player. It seems like what's funny is, Blaze and Frost are the CLG, TSM, and Dignitas of Korea. They won't get rid of the legacy players who hold them back. They always keep the player who's just good enough not to get kicked, but not good enough to take you to the top. They make all the same mistakes people were saying about NA 6 months ago, right?
Oh, I agree, but that's been true for the last year of Blaze and Frost as well, as those legacy players are still there, and that I don't think CJ is as ruthless as other Korean teams when it comes to kicking underperformers.
Because the funny thing was, if you look earlier in the game, they were originally the gods of recruiting. They moved Reapert and Woong, two of the best top laners, and who did they replace them with? Just a couple of unknowns called Flame and Shy, who went on to be even better and probably the two best top laners ever. Oh, and what happened to those two players? These brand new scrubs out of solo queue. Oh, they only became super good on all champions, really good at 1v2ing, godlike at wave control, both simultaneously out of nothing. That tells you that coaching is really good. You had something going good there. You had good recruitment. You knew what you wanted from them. You molded them into the players you want. You put them in your team. You were more successful with both initially. This is all great stuff. But then in the CJ era, that's what we've never seen. We've never really seen the players come in and do better, you know.
And what happened? Because, of course, like you're saying, these were the teams that were taking the chances, that did have the good scouting, and that did have the ability to turn. I mean, Shy would join Frost and then was competing at the World Finals within 6 months of starting to play League of Legends. That's ridiculous.
So, I mean, yeah, I just thought we'd throw that out there as a bit of food for thought for people, since people are always going to use that infrastructure excuse. I think this has been a good episode. It's been pretty long. Any final thoughts, Monty?
That's it for me.
Okay. See you next